Hey, everybody. I know this is a little bit late than normal for us, and I know if you're wondering out there watching this, where were these great, somewhat awesome people, more on that side than on my side, people, for our Sunday review? Because today we're supposed to be talking about Casablanca. Well, here's the deal, and this is God's honest truth. I have a daughter, I have an ex wife. And you ever heard of the two things you don't keep two hens in the same house? Yeah, it's like two male lions. Well, I got that going on. So Mark, who is a great guy, Omenau, who's also a very great guy, Shadow and Jack, who were great people in themselves, and Bo were lucky enough not have to deal with me earlier today because I got stuck doing family stuff. And of course, Jack, you can have the link. What kind of uncle would I be? Probably a better one because you don't need to listen to me.
That's right.
But hey, Multi Gun Man, thank you for joining us. I'm doing good. Just got some family teenager drama.
That's
But
okay. You know what? Remember, my son got kicked out of the house for a few weeks, so it's that age. you know,
yeah,
it was like, oh well, people forget it's teenagers. That's going to happen. I think there's a genetic aspect that's required where the parents are going to push the kids out and the kids want to leave, and I think that's a good healthy aspect that we've done.
oh, I had my bags packed at 18. As soon as my 18th birthday was up and I wasn't quite out of school at that juncture, I said peace. And
Hey, Ungar, can you come in? I mean, just the only reason I'm doing that is because want to make sure you're doing all right, man.
yeah, Hunger, you're always welcome. Jack, if you want to grab your dad, we'll make this, we'll have ourselves a party. I don't have any red Solo cups, so don't look at me for a beer.
You know what? My friend used to leave beer in my refrigerator because it was the
awesome
safest
friend.
Fort Knox because they knew it would, when they came back, there'd be the same number.
So when I started doing the sport I'm in, Dag here, I got a reputation of being an alcoholic, which is not true. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm Irish. Wait, that didn't come out right. But I got a reputation of being an alcoholic because I would, I'm young in my young 20s, and you do what young 20 people do. You drink, and we'd have drinking contests, and I was normally one of the few last standing. I didn't always win, but I normally came out pretty good. And I moved in with my friend Finn, and he kept beer in his fridge. And basically to prove that, wondering if I was alcoholic, I left his beer alone because it wasn't my beer. You don't touch your friend's beer.
Hey,
man,
you're looking more Mennonite.
To be fair, that has a good look on you, except for the whole hospital motif. If we can get rid of that one, it'd be amazing. Your brother, though.
I think he needs a black hat, and he needs a black, just go all the way.
Or maybe
if I could get rid of this damn COVID, I'd be happy.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that you got that, man. Have they been giving you vitamin D and vitamin C?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I've been following stuff up, and if you ever listen to John Campbell, he's a doctor, but he's a nurse. He has a doctorate in nursing. He goes over all this stuff, but he says vitamin D is one of the main things to impact. So, I just want to make sure that they're giving you enough vitamins, man.
There's a few nurses I've met over the years I would like to get some vitamin D to, but that's a whole different subject.
Well, I just want to make sure that Hungar is well. That's all we care about, man.
Your brother threw me off. I was like, his videos, he's all clean shaved and looks like he's driving an ice cream truck. It just threw me off.
Yeah, we're both talking about it. Every time I'd eat or drink something, I'd get a mouthful of hair.
Hey, Jack.
Hey, Jackie.
Hello.
That is a damn good picture of you, young man.
Thank you.
It almost
looks very 70s.
uniform. Wait, I never had one. Never mind.
He looks like a piece with that,
I just jumped on to say hi. I'm still alive.
Hungar. Well, I mean, you almost always lighten up a room whenever you come in, man. You're always great to have, and that's it.
Absolutely.
that you know what has pained us most is not your presence; it's the fact we keep seeing you in the hospital. That's you know.
Yeah.
Hopefully this stuff will run its course and I can
Yeah.
go home.
I
Okay.
want this to be said. You are always welcome on my show. I don't care what we're doing. You, Haas, have a VIP over almost anybody else just because how cool you are.
Yep.
I'm cool.
I don't know how much that's worth coming from a failed marriage, slightly alcoholic, what was I accused of? Oh, yeah, being a liberal racist.
Well, if you're a liberal, then you're automatically a racist.
How does that work?
Because, especially if you're a liberal white person, then you're just trying to assimilate all cultures into one gray mass so you can bring about a globalist world order.
No. You're forgetting that you feel guilty for being alive, but you have to blame everyone else for your own.
I don't feel guilty.
Well, yeah, that's a part of it.
I enjoy my life. I like doing this to other people. Hey, are you having a good day? How can I make it better? It's like the bloody Jesus from Dogma. You know?
Buddy Jesus. Oh, I know. I love that. But no.
I'm gonna bounce, guys.
Okay, Hungar, I'm glad to see you.
Sleep.
God
bless.
All right, yeah, man. Make sure to give you plenty of vitamin C, vitamin D, and some zinc, man. That should help, and get plenty of rest.
When
I've been
you're
sleeping a lot.
back home and you're doing one of your morning shows, I might have to hop in and terrorize you.
Anytime.
All right. It's good seeing you,
All right,
Hungar.
guys.
Yeah. Okay. Get better.
Good night.
Absolutely. Good night.
Young Jack.
Yes.
Okay. Well, not that we had time. We're just gonna ask. Real quick. Did you watch Casablanca and did you like it?
I liked it.
Okay, that's it for what we're going to do. We can always do the show later with Mark.
We'll do the review at a later date. By the way, that was a damn good choice. There's a few issues I have with it, but not many. I
have a few issues too, but not many. Yeah.
Would I watch this movie again within the next couple weeks? Yeah, just to make sure I caught everything.
I
would, but I probably won't, if that makes sense.
No. I have Casablanca, and when I first watched, I watched it over and over and over again, and that was probably when I was about 4 or 5 years older than you are, Jack. But after that, it's like, oh, I enjoy it. I'll watch it. But apparently, I've become the black and white guy.
Yeah, you have. I noticed that.
It's not even intentional. There's just some great movies from that era that I figure you have not seen.
I don't know how I feel about that. I think I watch more black and white movies than you do.
No. What I mean is every time that we do a movie review.
Oh, okay. I was just curious because all the movies I watch are in black and white.
Yeah. No. I meant, but I'm trying to get the stuff that Jack might have missed, and you can see what how great storytelling and stuff goes on instead of watching the crap that's nowadays.
During chat on our Discord. Yeah, what was the two movies? What was the two movies? Excuse my language, Jack. I'm sorry. Ben-Hur. Love that.
Oh, Ben-Hur's a great one too.
Love that movie.
The original. Oh no, not the original. The one with Charlton Heston. Let's rephrase because there was original in the 20s too.
What my issue is, and if we do Moses or the Commandments, it's not with the movie. It's not even with the subject of the movie. I'm Catholic, of course. I won't do Passions of the Christ. I refuse to watch that movie ever again.
Hey, you know what? As I was picking up girls during the pre-show.
Oh,
my friend's like, "You're gonna go to hell." I'm like, "You're the one that brought me here an hour early. I have to keep myself entertained."
I was in that movie and I'm watching it and I'm like, okay. And I'm talking to my friend, we're talking quietly. We're not being obnoxious or anything. And the lady in front of me, shh, I would like to see how this ends. What?
You haven't heard.
Don't ruin this for me. I like to see the way it ends. Do you not know how it ends? What's my next question?
Well, shh. He doesn't.
No. Spoilers. He gets crucified. He gets stabbed. We get a magical relic called the Spear of Destiny. It's not really talked about in that movie, but that's okay. He gets put into a tomb. He comes out 3 days later, and that's the end of the movie.
No.
Correctly.
Wait a minute. Mel Gibson's talking about making a sequel.
To what?
Well, remember, after he came back, what all the stuff he did after he came back.
He was only around for like 24 hours before he dipped.
Well, I mean, come on. How long did the Passion of Christ take? What, 24? No, it was like 40 days or something, wasn't it?
He wasn't. No, was he?
Yeah.
We gotta get like some holier people on this show.
Thomas Aquinas, he's the doubting Thomas when he comes over to show the holes in his hands, or technically, I think that he was actually through the wrist.
Oh my God! Could you imagine if I got a priest to come on the show?
Hey, you know what? The dungeon minister.
Imagining that.
You have a problem imagining that, or you do have a problem imagining, or you can imagine that?
I physically cannot imagine that.
The dungeon minister. Get the dungeon minister. He might be willing to do it.
I can. Next time I go to church, which I do go to church, by the way, Jack, don't you judge me. I'll have to ask one of the priests.
For going to church, I'll judge you for other things.
No, that's right. I'm an all right Catholic. At least I'm honest about it.
Yeah.
My mom in 1993 said, "My goal is to go to church more than I did last year." I said, "Well, Mom, how many times did you go to church last year?" She said, "Once." I said, "Well," and that was 93.
Always be the goal, though.
And well, her goal was to go at least twice in 1994, or was it 1993? Anyway, but now she goes every week to her Greek Orthodox. So it's one of these things.
I got this friend named Russell. He's a Lutheran, which I won't pick on. I might. I'll try not to pick on them too much. They're the church that was founded by a guy who wrote the Catholic Church of Dear John letter and nailed it to a wall. I mean,
you know what? We need to talk about that history someday. It sounds.
I need to write a book about how that event has ruined the world.
Yeah. No, it wasn't that one. It was Henry VIII when is married to some. I'm cleaning what I'm about ready to say up really quickly. Him wanting to get married to somebody else. The Catholic Church saying, no, we cannot exalt another marriage. Fine. I will go marry somebody else and I'll start my own church.
No, and it gets better. Why did they not want to give him the what is it called? What is it, the annulment? Why did they not want to give him the annulment? Because the Pope was under siege by her father, I believe. At the time, when you start looking at the political alliances and stuff, it gets really detailed.
Well, my point is that kickstarted the Reformation, which caused some of the events in England, which led to the whole Anglican stuff, which led to John Milton writing Paradise Lost, which not directly, but inspired some revolutionary thoughts, which eventually led to some writings in France, which led to the French Revolution, which led to the worst thing ever happening, which led to the best thing that France ever did, which is one of two good things that they've ever done, which is Napoleon single-handedly preventing the fall of France to a civil war and possibly a nation which has an official religion of a cult. And
Jack, you're missing so much in there.
I'm missing
a lot. Yes, I'm glancing over it.
Well, that's more like
looking at stuff.
That's jumping chapters.
Yes.
And to be fair, if anyone actually looks at the 95 Theses, I don't think there's any Catholic alive today that would disagree with most of them.
Yeah, that's a correct statement to make. Yeah.
I mean, if you really look at what he was doing, because they wanted to build the Vatican, and what they were doing is they were taking the Holy Roman Empire and squeezing for as much money. Come on, plenary indulgences. By the way, we'll give you a get out of jail free card if you give us money, and so we can pre-approve your sin and forgive you for it if you give us enough money. I'm like, no, you're supposed to not sin. You're not supposed to say, hey, look. Anyway.
Yeah.
You're not wrong by any stretch of the imagination. But at the same time, doesn't that sound like modern day politics?
Well, politics are politics. I'm just saying that if you're going to be a religious institution, you should be sticking to your morals, not your pocketbook.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like that's everyone. Everyone should be sticking to their morals and not their pocketbook. But
Well,
I don't know.
If we're going to talk about something and stuff I need to do at some point is to read some of the writings by Thomas Aquinas, and there's another one out there too, who did all like the bad things. There's a lot of really interesting groups out there, but at the end of the day, hey, look, I have my mother's Orthodox, my father's Catholic. We got pretty much all of Europe except maybe Albania covered, maybe Bulgaria.
Albania. I think that's a good thing.
Albania is I think mostly Muslim, but that's
yeah, they are.
I'm not. You know what though? At the end of the day, like I said, I've been around the world. Human beings are human beings, and this whole idea of trying to separate human beings to fight over skin color and stuff is just stupid. Anyway,
skin color doesn't particularly matter. People can be of essentially any culture, not matter. Their skin color doesn't matter.
Human beings are human beings at the end of the day, and people want to pretend that they aren't, and that's what bothers me. Oh well, this person, I'm like, no, you know what? When I start seeing this, just like my favorite is, well, white privilege. I said, okay, go tell me the kid who's living on his mother's on welfare, his father was abusive, he lives in a trailer park, where his privilege is. There isn't any. The problem is that those people are invisible to all of these college people. Oh, well, I said, no. What you're looking at is you're looking at your friends who are and their parents who are already rich and who are making sure they maintain being rich by suppressing it's just like the Jim Crow laws. Jim Crow laws were used against whites and blacks. It was used against the poor mostly. Don't get me wrong. They'll look at one or the other.
Oh,
but
I live in a former Jim Crow town. So no,
I mean, but if you start looking at it, just read a really good book. I think that's interesting is anyone that's watched read Rising Tide, talking about the Mississippi and the floods that occurred during that. See, what always gets me is the news media is like, this is the worst ever, and you go, wait a minute, I can go back and it's just like, this heat is the worst ever. And I went, we have records showing that Kansas was 122 degrees during 1930. I think it's 1936 or 1934. 122 degrees. The only place I've ever been that hot is, well, I guess, I think it's been Afghanistan and maybe Iraq. Those are the only two places in the world.
How hot?
122 degrees in Kansas.
Kenya. I've been to Kenya. And it probably was roughly around there. I didn't check the temperature every day. I just knew it was hotter than hell. And I guess I'm over here doing a good thing.
Why did you? What?
Kenya. Well,
did you go on a safari?
No. The church I belong to. Okay, not a church I belong to. A church that this girl who belonged to, who I had a thing for, decided that they do it every year. They go over to Kenya and help build like structures, like churches, schools, and things like that. And right next to this little village that we were at, there was an Irish pub. And some of the best Guinness I've had in a while, to be honest. Anyways, so they would go, and I didn't exactly agree with everything that their church was, saying, but a good deed is a good deed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go over to Kenya. I've gone twice and help build, houses, schools, churches. And while they were praying 7 times a day, I would be either in the pool or drinking. So it kind of worked, and got to hang out with the girl I liked. So it kind of worked out for me. That sounds horrible.
Not really. If it wasn't for women, men wouldn't be doing crap.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as people want to talk about, it's like women are great motivators of men. They're why men will work hard and kill themselves.
Yeah,
not crafty. Gamer, you are fine. Thanks for showing up. I appreciate anybody who's in chat that wants to say something. We're just BSing tonight. Hey, speaking of BS, where's your dad?
Not here.
Where is he?
Somewhere else. I don't know.
He
He's like,
doesn't drive.
You're right. He does not drive. He's
I am
probably
not my
in the shower
father's
with
keeper.
somebody.
Well, so Jack, are you at home or are you at one of your families?
Yeah, I'm at home.
Okay. So they went out. Well, you know what? Good for them if they went out.
Well, no, they didn't.
Oh, okay. Oh, he's in the house somewhere. You're just not letting him. Okay.
I was about to say, do I need to
think
charge
he's in
Shadow?
the shower, but I'm probably wrong because I don't hear him.
Oh,
I was
okay.
about to say, do I need to charge Shadow babysitting money?
Maybe he's in there. That'd be a nice change.
All right, sorry, multi-gun man. I didn't see. Hi, what's new? You know what? For me, I've worked out a little bit. I'm still waiting to get my. I need to email him again. It's like that pull-up bar that I'm supposed to be doing a pull-up bar and couldn't do it, so I just did some kettlebell swings and some overhead club.
I tried to do one of those kettlebell swings. They had me kneel down, grab it, you flip it up, and you go up.
No. That's not a swing. That's a press normally. No, the swing is just basically where you put it between your legs, and then you stick your butt out, and you just. That's all you're doing.
Oh, they were having me do the press, right? I've been going to the plant, and I did it. I went up, my back went pop, 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 pop.
Oh wow!
I swing the things back down, put the down. And the guy's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, I'm gonna go sit down for about a minute. Then about a minute later, I got back up and continued my workout.
Oh, good.
I figured running is no longer an option for me, so I can be fat and strong. So I'll just start lifting.
Well, I mean, I need to.
The frick is that? That looks like a mace.
It is. This is a 7-pound mace. This is. I've got a 15-pound mace too, which I don't. The problem is they get too long to use them in the house. Then I got my clubs. That's only a 10-pound, but I got up to a 20. So, once you start getting old, you got to at least keep the body up. Otherwise, it just gets worse and worse.
I've been going to the YW, not the YWCA. Yeah, YWCA is swimming. I've been trying to do better.
You know what? We have.
It's always good.
They get funny when you try to light a cigar when you're in a pool.
Well,
It probably won't work.
For us, we have, we have camps over here at our in our parks, and that's what I was putting my son through. Except that they canceled. They unfortunately canceled the film academy, but I'm thinking about putting him in next month. But not that he really wants to go, but I like it because it gives him an outlet, and he has a lot of fun when he goes. He always said, "I don't want to go." You're going anyway. So.
I mean, yeah, that's how things should go.
Well, I'm not trying to say it. The big thing is he needs to get out and get socialized instead of just running around. And now, to be fair, he does stuff, but it's great if you want someone to fix your appliances or charge stuff up or do stuff like that. He's fantastic. If you want someone to sit there and try doing homework, my God, it's like, okay, got to do that. So, yeah, I mean, those are always things I worry about. Your father will always worry about you. I'll worry about my son. But, he's a good kid overall. I mean, the stuff you said to your dad, I'm like, oh, my God. My son doesn't quite say that. But he's like, I can't wait till you die. I said, when was that going to happen? I said, well, okay. So you want me dead already? He says, no, like in 30 years. I said, I'll take 30 years. 30 years sounds like pretty good. So yeah, at least you have a good relationship with your dad there, Jack. So really appreciate that compared to a lot of people.
No joke.
Yeah, I mean nowadays most kids nowadays are lucky if they know who that is.
Man, I am part of that era that I don't know who my father is. I keep leaving Father's Day's cards at the local gas station just as often he comes to pick up that pack of cigarettes.
Yeah, nowadays it's always a pack of. Nowadays it's always milk.
No, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I know him. I have not met him in person. We have exchanged emails and all that stuff, but it's just I know ideally the ideal family is 2 parents and kids, but sometimes a family is what you make it out to be, and sometimes your family are not even the people you're born to.
Well, my
For-
aunt, and this was
Typically, on average, and we are speaking in these regards, averages are always important to acknowledge. On average, it is always best for. I mean, every child does have the right to a mother and a father.
I'm going to generally put it this way, and this is what people forget about, is when people say on average, like, look, average plus or minus one standard deviation, and that's about what you're going to be looking at. But no, I mean, even with my son, I talk to him a lot, but I could tell when I was gone for a year, even when I talked to him for a year, it's like, what in the world? That's why, always job opportunities and stuff. I'm like, no, if I need to stick around. And his mom just is sending me messages going, is this normal? I'm like, yep, it's normal. He's a teenage boy. She's like, I wasn't like this. I'm like, yes, you were a girl. He is a boy. There's a difference between the two.
Yeah, but apparently saying that makes you a Nazi. So.
Well, you know what the problem really comes down to, I think, is that I hate saying this. Most people don't have anything real in their life, and because they don't have anything real,
that is exactly true.
They're trying to create something to give themselves meaning. And the other part is, and this is the hard part, is we're in a society nowadays where people congratulate you for doing nothing more than just claiming to be whatever's the flavor of the week, rather than actually putting in the work and actually doing something hard. And it's like, look, I'm 50. Okay, I put in a fair amount of the work. I can say all the mistakes I made. I don't have to really prove anything too much to anyone. But like at your age, if you put in the work and you work really hard, especially the way that other people are acting, is you're going to be so far ahead of your peers by doing that. And that's what being a strong man or learning how to be there makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. I mean, right now, people just congratulate you essentially for existing, and it makes absolutely no sense. People imagine that because they need some sort of meaning in their lives, that the best solution is, because I believe that everyone needs something to go against and something to strive for. Those things can be linked or they can be separated to varying degrees. But nowadays, people don't have either of those things. So they decide to make something up out of nowhere to try to go against. Because you need a legitimate problem to solve in your life. But they don't have any because their lives are too comfortable and they like their comfort, but they can't acknowledge the problems that come with it. That primary one being is they don't have anything to try to do with their lives. So they just come up with some imaginary problem because their brain needs one. And that's how we're getting to the place we are. And at the same time, they already have everything they could really want, at least outside of any valuable meaning. They just think, well, I already have everything I want, so I should probably try to get more. But their solution to getting more is not actually finding something of value, but just getting more meaningless items in their lives.
Well, okay, I got a question for you. What gives something meaning?
What gives something meaning?
What gives something meaning to you? I should ask.
That's essentially, it's really an not impossible, but a difficult question to answer. But I would say that it is very easy to answer what it doesn't have meaning. People just looking after things which really, the way I would describe it, and I probably won't describe it very well, but the way I would describe it is people nowadays, they have things which don't have meaning. And what I mean by that is they have all this stuff, but they don't particularly care for it. And if they do, it doesn't, what the value it brings is superficial.
I'm gonna bring up one thing here, which is I think that people are looking for injustices to fix, but they don't want to put in the hard work to do it.
That is another aspect, yes.
Well, I mean, okay, so I remember when Black Lives Matter first came out, I said, "Hey, man, instead of doing that, why don't you just call it All Lives Matter?" And I got attacked for it. And I went, "Dude, the idea is that if you want to reform the police, and don't get me wrong, I think there are a lot of police reforms that need to be done, but
there's a lot of places that need to be done.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter, wherever you go." And I said, let's find commonalities to fix and deal with those. And the answer really is they don't want to. They want to scream and yell and how bad something is, and then they cry whenever they get attacked. I said, look, there are a lot of good police officers. There are, and there are a lot of bad police officers. And the goal is to get rid of the bad police officers for number one. And number two, and this is what I don't like, is there used to be a time police were said to serve and protect. And now it's changed over to law enforcement. And the laws in many cases are unjust as much as anything else. And I said,
Yeah.
hey, that's big. Hey, James L.
No, I was going to say, speaking
Hello.
of, yes, we got an Australian here. His country was originally started by a bunch of convicts.
Yeah, apparently. That's all anyone. That's all anyone knows about Australia. It's funny because, like,
actually, Australia does not exist. It's a fake country.
Officially. Well, there was a time when it was like kind of you would hide convict heritage, and then it became fashionable again, like, to kind of say, oh, we've got a sheep thief in the family or something like that.
Well, if you look at some of the laws there, is when you start looking at what the British were doing, is they were kind of just emptying out all their prisons for a lot of BS reasons. I mean, the people in the jail were kind of in there for BS reasons, and they were just looking for to send British overseas. And it reminds me of going to go talk about games, the Warhammer 40K, where you start going over, if you read the original Rogue Trader, where it says the penal legions, which could include that you returned an overdue library book. I mean, if you actually read some of those things, it talks about that stuff. And I'm not saying that you don't get, really brutal human beings, but I'm saying in some cases you start looking at it, and you're like, what? They're like, oh, yeah, we did.
I think we've been here for like my family's been here like for about 5 generations either side. So we just kind of missed the convict thing, but there were definitely rapscallions in the family line, like regardless, just by a smidge. You know what I mean?
I was talking to some of my family members I still have over in Ireland, just out of dumb curiosity. I'm like, so how many of us how many of us got shipped over to Australia? He's like, throughout the generations, like, there was a few. I mean, what do you mean few? 1, 2? He's like, a couple whole families.
Yeah,
that sounds about right.
And some of it's intentional.
But also, people were like at a certain point, like more towards the mid part of the 19th century, like when the colonies were quite settled and like productive. Like people were leaving the old world to go to like Canada and America and Australia and New Zealand, So a lot of people just came to just try their luck in the goldfields, or like start droving animals.
Well, if you look at one of the things, I was watching one television show, and they said the big thing that drove a lot of Americans is not, they talk about paved with gold. It was the fact that they could be fed, especially the Irish, with the potato famine.
Yeah,
the potato famine. Yeah. What gets me about the potato famine is that they still made them, while these people are starving to death, is that they still made them pay their normal tributes and everything else, which just made the starvation worse. Instead of saying,
they also shipped a lot of crops offshore. Like, I've heard a lot of. I mean, like, I'm probably a little bit more sympathetic to the British Empire than some people, but there is a lot of like pro-Anglo revisionism about, oh, well, they were surrounded by fish, so what was their problem? It's like, look, you don't understand. It's like a lot of these people were subsistence farming since Cromwell. And I mean, even Irish travelers, like people who are normally associated like with Romany, like a lot of those people are just descended from farmers who just got kicked off their land and like went on the road forever, kind of thing,
I was wondering where you're going there, because you're touching on one side of my family and touching on the other side of my family.
Yeah,
where are you going?
Well, I think there is an actual Romany connection, like way down the line, but it's much closer with British travelers, and people on the continent.
Well, I know that.
Yeah, but a lot of those, a lot of people were really like, it was a massive culture shock. I mean, the thing about Ireland, I always say, is that it's actually a lot more like a Mediterranean country in temperament and culture. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I'll give you that. I growing up in Ireland and going over to the Mediterranean off and on because of my grandma, I'll give you that. I mean,
mm,
my grandpa,
yeah.
the biggest thing is he just wanted to be left alone. He did his part in World War II. He has a business. He had a
Hmm.
family to take care of. He didn't want the British telling him what he can and cannot do. He just wanted to be left alone. And if you push somebody, and this goes with any culture, if you got somebody pushing on you, eventually you're going to break, and things are not going to go the direction that either one of you guys want. I mean, it's happened
Well,
here in
The Irish were some of the best soldiers the British ever had, and like were really enthusiastic, like a lot of colonial soldiers, because they figured participation would mean that they get a little bit more of a say in running their own affairs. Like um,
Hey,
it
have you
just
been
didn't
watching
always shake
Zulu?
out that way.
Have you
Pardon?
been watching? Have you been watching the movie Zulu again?
Oh,
I actually never. I
I
don't
felt
like.
a real yen to watch it the other week.
Oh yeah,
You
so
know, it's very good. It's very good for the period, like especially like you know.
What's that show I've been watching? It's a period show. Peaky Blinders.
Hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, like
I mean,
they-
I would legitly would love to have a friendship with Tommy, the main guy. I think he's absolutely
I
brilliant.
can't I haven't gotten into it because it's one of those shows where like if something runs for more than like 3 seasons, I won't watch it because I don't want to watch its inevitable decline. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
even with The Sopranos, which is probably my favorite TV series of all time, or one of them, it took me so long to watch season 6 because I just didn't want to see the deconstructivist kind of end.
I actually never seen that show.
I have watched bits and pieces of it, but The Wire was
It's
one that
shockingly violent, and you develop an
Wire was
affinity
good.
for characters who then take very dark and sharp turns. Like in some ways, it probably I could see how you could take a negative view of it now because it kind of established so many tropes in that kind of HBO style telemovie level of production. You know what I mean? Like where you get to like a character and then you see them do something, like absolutely objectionable,
well, come on, it's about the mafia, okay? I mean,
Yeah.
that's in there. That's
The thing is, when you watch it, you also pick up some of the little aphorisms. Like you're like, "Hey, paisan," for like a couple of weeks, walking around the house going, double.
I've seen a bunch of those TikTok videos for 1 week, the first week of watching blah show. I kind of want to do that with Deadwood.
You know what? I have tried to watch bits and pieces of Deadwood. And I'm not saying it's bad.
Deadwood, it makes a dangerous drinking game.
Oh, I
no.
What?
every time they curse.
Oh, there's a particular
Phrase.
phrase that's in that show that if you turn it into a drinking game, every time this word is said, you would be fucking ripped before.
There's a lot of cussing in it, isn't there?
Yeah, but I don't mind cussing. I've never been. Oh my god! But there's this one saying. I don't feel comfortable saying it with our current company. I will. Whatever.
I'm trying to train myself out of swearing as much because I have little nieces running around sometimes, and
I've always been a strong believer I've always been a strong believer of a time and place. There's places where it's truly acceptable.
If I was just drinking beers with you, I'd be like swearing like a sailor. But I'm trying not to. I'm really like consciously trying to do it less, especially on streams, because it's sometimes a little bit jarring. Like when someone drops an F-bomb on a stream,
it certainly can be.
Here's the thing that gets me about it is it's overused and it loses its entire meaning when it's overused. But like you said, James, is when do you want to be called James or Jim? That's the big thing.
Doesn't matter.
Okay,
All
so
right.
I couldn't care less. Just happy to be here.
okay. Well, I mean, it looks gorgeous where you are right now.
Yeah, it is, man. It's very hot, but it's nice.
Okay. So what's hot to you?
No, it's probably like mid 30s, low 30s
Okay.
here at the moment.
So
Yeah,
it's up in the 90s.
Celsius.
We kind of
Yeah.
had that conversation. What do we determine as hot? Africa is hot. I don't care what anybody says. Africa is freaking hot.
When it gets to like
You know-
38 or 40, it does get to 38 or 40 here sometimes. That's intense. That's like, you don't go outside really.
Okay. So that's kind of Texas as well. I mean,
Yeah.
But I always laugh.
But
when
then we
people-
have really like quite cold winters, snows in the mountains kind of thing,
It snows in Australia.
It's like it's like a temperate tropical climate for like
I figured you
on the
were
coast
below,
and then like
I figured you were just
semi-arid desert for most of the,
I mean, most of Australia is just a big desert, anyways.
No,
Isn't there this proposal to build a big channel through it?
Jack, that's why we've got to trick the Chinese into like invading via the port of Darwin and just draw them into the desert. Like,
I feel
it's
like
like-
it's a logistical nightmare.
I want to
that-
raise like a battalion of Aboriginal trackers with like really cool scopes and stuff and like sniper rifles just to kind of lead the way. Like,
I'm just thinking that it's the whole thing that is, well, everyone goes, oh, it's like this. I said, it's not like that. I remember going to Iraq and people going, oh man, you going to Iraq? I said, yes, it's 400 miles north of where I live now. And as far as latitude, they're like, what? I said, oh yeah, but deserts get hotter and colder anyway because you don't have the humidity. One of the worst places I've ever been in my life was Qatar, because it was something like 115 degrees and 98% humidity. So
it snows all over Afghanistan, doesn't it? The winters in Afghanistan could be pretty punishing, can't they?
I was in northern Iraq. Well, I was also in the western part of Afghanistan, which, to be fair, we were several thousand feet up in the air. Our elevation was probably a couple thousand feet higher, at least. And people forget every 1,000 feet that you go up, it goes down. What is it? 3 degrees? And I can't remember if it's Celsius or Fahrenheit, but it drops. And people forget about that. Yeah, Florida is hot, but I'll tell you this much: Miami has nothing on Qatar. Qatar is one of the worst.
Not to dock
Well,
yourself.
I love how they want to build giant mirrored buildings in the desert. Like
How does that work? Except
Very smart.
As people walk by, they suddenly explode in fire like an ant. I mean,
I think they've been bumping off tribal leaders that are going to be living in the shadow. Actually, no joke. If they don't willingly move, they've been moving them on forcibly. So, yeah.
I'm actually trying to look up a airplane ticket to see how much it is to Australia.
It just looks like such a dud. It just looks like such a dud design. Like, I hate modern architecture. It makes me furious.
I hate modern everything.
Actually, it's brutalist architecture I really hate more than the other stuff. But you're right.
I tried to like being a fan of like 70s CRT monitors and egg chairs and bright geometric shapes and stuff, like in Scandinavian furniture. I tried to appreciate brutalist architecture because everyone I knew was telling me it was cool, but I just couldn't escape the overriding feeling that it was designed to make me feel small and horrible and slimy and insignificant.
Well, see, the problem is after I lived in Germany and all these other stuff, and you see these great cathedrals and everything, and you come over here and you're just like, this is kind of crap,
People nowadays think that all that old stuff was bad and evil, so we need to do like the opposite of that, and then it just turns out ugly and disgusting.
No. Yeah. People like because you can tell by the number of people who go visit. It's what it is that I want to call it these avant-garde people who have no appreciation. What I want to call them is, what are they? These nihilists. It's the nihilists who are that way, but most people aren't nihilistic. And
I was really praying that like utopian futurist vision of like future cities would be much more leafy and kind of garden oriented than they turned out being. You know what I mean?
Thought was kind of funny.
Improve public space and turn it into a giant botanical garden.
It's become shadowed.
It's just nobody wants to.
What?
The problem is it takes a lot of upkeep. There are a lot of buildings in Sydney, like apartment blocks where they were really fancy and expensive and well positioned, a bit small, but they were really sold on the kind of walled garden thing, and you can just watch it kind of declining over time because it's not getting the upkeep that it really needs.
Well, I mean, people water their own gardens and like deal with the upkeep themselves. Then, I mean, yeah, some people won't be willing to spend the money on that, but.
Well, it's just harder to do up the side of a really tall building, you know. It becomes less of a.
Well, there's more than one way to water a plant off the side of a tall building, and not all of it comes from a faucet. I mean,
well, no. I mean, here's what gets me is apparently the Brutalist thing was to after the fire bombings of Germany, they went and you know the Russians as well. All these areas they had is they decided to just firebomb the whole thing, and they rebuilt. And you can tell the more modern cities, but part of the problem that I have with it is that somehow, even when I was at my university, when I went to A&M, we used to go look at it, and you could tell that the buildings in the 1930s, even if they didn't have the same number of windows and stuff, the care and work that went into the buildings they were how do I want to put this? They were monuments is what they really came to be. And nowadays they're just pretty much utilitarian. It's just like whenever you get cubicles versus and you're just like, oh, this is.
Oh yeah. Earlier today, I basically today was pure crap. But before before today blew up, I had to go get my oil changed, and I go to the store. My daughter's like, "Can I go with you?" And I might go ask her mom. She comes out and says, "Mom says yes," so she goes with me. That was my first mistake, but we'll get into that later.
You can already see why.
And I start driving. We go downtown Peoria, which there's a lot of those buildings are from the 40s and 50s. I mean, you could just tell by the architect that they're not going anywhere. They're all boarded up. They're not used anymore. And I'm thinking, is like, if somebody would move into those buildings, you know, turn them into restaurants, turn them into retro whatever.
So I'm not sure if you're familiar with what Trump did in D.C. He turned in one of the post offices into something like that became residential. And when I was in Fort Worth, they did the same. I mean, it was a huge post. I mean, there was a rail line in the back. I mean, it was a huge, massive thing. And they went in and they sold it, and now it's being renovated. But, you know, so much of it really depends on the cities that you're going for. You know, and I hate saying this, but, you know, sometimes, and this is what gets me angry. I know this is what happened in Chicago. One of the guys, he had his restaurant there. The lot next to him had a bunch of trash that they were all going through. So what he did, and then they started finding him for the trash that was next to him. So he said, screw it. So he cleaned up the lot that was next to him. He made it really nice. And guess what the city said? You're not allowed to do that. And they came back. And so sometimes, and this is what I find really disgusting, is the city leaders do that intentionally to lower the property values so they can buy it, and then they can, you know, or they can get a developer to come in and buy that land cheap so they can redo it. And that's what that's what really disgusts me.
From Peoria, if you're like on top of, you know, a couple of hills here in East Peoria, you can see over the river into Peoria. You can see the skyline, and it's gorgeous. You know, the skyline of Peoria is actually very pretty. They did a good job with it. But there was always this like little band of houses across the river on East Peoria, band of houses where you can see where Peoria ends, the river, and East Peoria begins. Now, because of people who know better than I do, so forth and so on, it looks like Peoria just has slowly bleeded over into East Peoria. That nice little disconnect is not there. And I mean, granted, that was considered our bottom, or you know, not the ghetto, but that's where the people who could not live on the hill lived.
So what do you have there, James?
A pumpkin, or part of a pumpkin.
Hey, okay, Rossi.
I have never seen. Okay, now being in the United States, we almost always get full pumpkins. We don't have
yeah. Well, I mean, this is just a chunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I lived down in Nashville, we go to Whole Foods, which is just hippies with money, and they had stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
American wait. American supermarkets are fantastic. Like the amount of choice is like, I mean, most Western countries is pretty good, but American supermarket, it's something else. You know what I mean?
I'm going to say something is Whole Foods is plenary indulgence for people who feel guilty for being alive. And they think by shopping at Whole Foods that it will absolve their ecological sins.
See, I thought that was Trader Joe's.
Oh, no. The people who shop at Whole Foods also shop at Trader Joe's.
Every girl I've ever known has been like, I wish they had Trader Joe's in Australia.
I'll tell you what I wish they had. I wish they had Central Market up here.
So, without doxing yourself, there, Jim, what is the closest city you live next to? Melbourne, Canberra, or Sydney?
Oh, I live in Sydney.
Oh, okay.
I don't care if anyone knows I live. Come to my house. I dare you. You'll want to leave.
Oh,
you'll be like,
well,
guy is lonely.
You've offered multiple times. If I find a way over there, you'd put me up for a couple days.
Yeah, at least it's got to be at least like 3 or 4 for it to be worth the flight. Consider the time difference.
No. Hey, Jim. You know, if you're going to do that, you know, I have a small child. Well, he's not so small anymore. I have a mouthy child who will actually fix like any appliances you have. So.
I'll give it to you for $25.99 on a 30%.
Well, you just come up with the airfare. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, actually, it's the airfare that would kill me. The cheapest one I can find is for
$2,000. They're a bit expensive at the moment, but I have seen really cheap deals. I mean, I think the smart thing to do would be to get a cheap flight to somewhere like Japan and then go from there. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know if you can put cheap and flight in the same sentence anymore.
I'm going to say this much. The problem that I have with it is it's probably only worth flying business class because you were so cramped and just, oh, God, I hate
No. If I could ever pull it off, I'd pay that exorbitantly expensive ticket, which is first class, but it's like a hotel room. You have your own miniature hotel room.
I did Sydney to LA on Delta, which was like Dante's kind of ninth circle kind of thing. It was pretty bad.
Sounds about right.
But like when it's over kind of thing. You know what I mean? As long as you're there for a couple of weeks at least, like it's kind of okay.
Yeah. Well,
honestly,
you know, but you do feel like cattle. You do feel like cattle, and you're just like, you know, before you get on that plane, you want to make sure that you've eaten something that isn't disgusting, had like a deep shower where you've just worked your pores for like, you know, because you're going to be sitting in the same spot for like 21 hours. That's all. Like, and use the bathroom and all of that, so that there's absolutely really no reason for you to get up to do anything except stretch and walk around. Like, that's
there's this YouTuber who will I don't know how he's able to afford it, but will buy airline tickets, first class, like, you know, VIP, super expensive ones. Somebody's bankrolling him because he's younger than I am. Anyways, and he's done trains and he's done airplanes, and if you have the money, man, they'll put you in your own little cabin. I've thought about doing a train from, like, say, France to, well, not Russia, but do some of the European train trips.
So Connell, years ago, you used to get the Europass.
Yeah.
A certain, I forgot what it was. It was maybe, now I don't know what it is now, but at the time, we're talking 20-something years ago. I think it was 700 euros for a month pass, and you could ride just about any train. And there, and I think they still have that stuff. And I think at the time it didn't go all the way to Poland, but basically you could go the entire way. So that helped.
Speaking of Poland, God, this is gonna come off bad. It's kind of weird because my grandpa served in World War II. It's kind of weird to have Germans sending tanks over to Poland, and it's not to conquer.
Yeah, but did you hear what the Russians said about it? Oh my God! If you actually listen to what they were going in there, they said this is not the first time that the Germans have come over with tanks to fight Russians. And I went, oh, I mean, what gets me about
maybe not the most forward-thinking, maybe not the most forward-thinking thing for them to do. Just to cycle back to away from controversial topic, for the sake of you keeping the channel, railway holidays. That's my ideal holiday. Really, with a nice vista. Very civilized kind of
make sure they have like a little smoking deck of some sort.
Sure. Well, and sometimes you just got to chew a Nicorette. But
I don't think I want to chew a cigar version of a Nicorette. That would be horrible.
Boss used to do that.
What?
He used to chew he'd have the cigar and he'd just chew the cigar.
Oh, I chew.
There are some really nice rail holidays that go across the desert in Australia. I'd like to do them when I get older. Sure.
The problem that I have with a lot of this stuff, and I think it was, remember when you had those big floods probably about 12 or 13 years ago?
Here?
Yes, in Australia.
Adelaide, South Australia is currently flooded. We've had Queensland flooded last year. It is a problem. Even around here, the rain was really heavy and the water level got up to step kind of thing.
No, at the time they were asking us to who wanted to volunteer to go to Australia, and I'm like, I want to go because we're gonna go check out the dams and the dikes and things.
Sure.
With DIKES before Connell gets his mind in the gutter.
Yeah.
But
didn't touch it.
Anyway,
I'm not Dutch. I have no fingers in any dikes.
You're not Dutch. Anyway,
I said that.
That's Victor's job.
No. Anyway, my boss said, "Oh hell no, you're not going if I can't go." Oh come on.
Well,
but
the thing is, during natural disasters, like bushfires and stuff, we've benefited a lot from people from the US and Canada coming over to help. And we do the same thing. We go, we fly over there when you guys are having extreme Californian forest fires, because it does take certain expertise, that you build up. And California, I don't know what smart aleck Australian did this, but something like 150 years ago, some Australians sold them a bunch of eucalyptus trees, and they explode when they get hot.
Here's the eucalyptus tree. Well, here's what gets me is I saw that in San Francisco. People plant them, they love them. They're like, oh, and the eucalyptus smells so nice and everything. And it's like, you understand. But, like a lot of, of course, Jack is over that. Jack would know
you can
more.
Plant them. You're just better off putting them around a body of water, maybe, or putting fire breaks in between, you can't just densely pack them in because it's like a box of matches,
But that was my one chance with it. My father went to Australia for his work, and he got some opals down when he was there. But my original plan before I went to college was I hated my job, and I said I will not work here when I turn 30, and so I worked really hard to save about $50,000 so I could go visit Australia for 6 months. Then I said, what the hell am I going to do when I come back? And I said, I'm going to take a job I hate. I said, well, I guess I'll go to college if I can do something else. So that was my one chance of missing out of just backpacking in Australia for 6 months.
Well, you have probably had fun, but what a great foundation for a young person, trying to actually get started in life, I always maybe it's a working class kid in me, but when kids take a gap year, I'm kind of a waste of time, honestly. Just hit the ground running. Makes it
I was 18 years old. 9/11 just happened. and a bunch of my buddies were gearing up to join this armed service. And I'm such of a knucklehead at the time. I was going to go with them because not out of patriotic duty, but I believe that if we have the ability to set things right, it being through that kind of conflict, then you should go do it. I don't know if that's patriotism or is that just, if we're evil to exceed, all it takes is for a good man to step aside.
I think a lot of people who joined up at the time were motivated by the idea that, they were going to sort this terrorism problem out.
Well, I got wind of my plans, and she's like, "I tell you what, this is what I want you. You graduate high school, and I will send you over to Europe wherever you want for a couple weeks to backpack. Don't worry about the money. We'll take care of this. I just want you to do this before you make up your mind." Unknowns to her, the military already said no to me. I took Ritalin, and I was flat-footed. And there was another reason, but we won't get into that.
Well, but I mean, a lot of it is, because I saw too, which is, what that, and I hate saying this now, is if you actually getting the little political part is I saw recently where it said most of the veterans do not recommend their children join the military, which is complete reverse of what it used to be. And,
that was a rite of passage. It was a rite of passage for generations.
It was family things. It was.
Well, yeah, but nowadays it's getting.
Connell, it's moments like these that I wish that Victor was here.
Jack, look away. I don't want your dad.
But no, I mean, but that's what gets me about this whole thing, and they're acting as if they have the same military or the same motivation from the public, and the public's like, no. I just saw, which this is the one thing I do find ghoulish, is when you get someone like Victoria Nuland saying, "I'm sure that you're happy that Nord Stream pipeline is this, a webble of concrete and steel," and I just went, you know what? You're talking about hundreds of thousands of people freezing over the winter, you witch. There's no humanity in some of these people. I'm like, look, I grew up knowing that, okay, the Soviets are coming through the Fulda Gap. I have about 1 week to escape, and my father is going to die on the battle lines because, and this is the thing that people forget about, which we don't have nowadays, is we had huge numbers of families in Europe during the 1980s. Guess what? Every soldier that was there with family is going to hold off the Soviets as long as they can to allow their families to escape. You don't have that anymore. There is no tie. No one cares. It's like, why am I going over here when my country's not even taking care of the people here in the United States? And that's what gets me about this whole thing, is they think that somehow this is good. They're going to get the same motivation, and they're just like, well, you're going to do this. Oh, really? I told my father. Well, I don't have to worry about my son. Yeah, go ahead.
Just seeing inconsistencies in how veterans are treated is like incentive enough to be hesitant. You know what I mean? Like,
it used to be different. I mean, the I talked to who retired in like the 1970s and stuff talked about how great they used to get a lot of them used to fly to Australia. They would get on the MAC flights and the Space A. They would get on there, they would wait, and they would fly to Australia for whatever. They go to Hawaii, and then they'd go to Australia, and then they'd fly back on these, without paying for any airfare. There was a lot of that stuff, and now some of it requires that you need a large military, but yeah, I look at what's going on, and I know people with the Veterans Administration, and going, this is ridiculous. The games people play to get their metrics up. I'm just horrified.
Maybe this is just a very skewed look at it, and I might be wrong, but I've been to Washington D.C. I've been to and a few other places, and I don't think there's anything wrong with serving. I think everybody should at least serve 6 years in the armed service.
I'm I'm going to say why I don't, but go ahead. Sorry, Colin.
It sets you up, even if you're not doing frontline, it'll set you up with a career of some type. You'll get some kind of training for a civilian job in theory. In theory.
I would have hated it. I would have hated it and cried like a little girl the whole time, but it probably would have been good for me.
But here's the thing. Why should I join the service when I know as soon as my contract up, there's 10-1, I'm going to be foobarred in the head because I saw too much crap and I don't know how to deal with it mentally. And 10-1 end up homeless by the time the year is out.
Well,
that's why one of the biggest things is you've really got to go in there to get a skill. Like, you know what I mean? Like engineering, leadership, that kind of thing. If you just go in to be cannon fodder, then guess what's going to happen?
Well, see, here's the problem that I have with it. It's not that I don't say the military can instill discipline in a lot of those things. If you're rudderless and directionless, and you want some adventure, great, go into the military. Just understand that a certain aspect, which is that's good for probably 2 years, and part of me just simply says join the reserves. It depends on what you're trying to look for. But the problem that I have with it now, whenever they talk about mandatory, is, and I saw this with the Germans in the 1990s, and apparently it's just as bad. The politicians take it for granted that you're going to come in, and because they take it for granted, they treat you like crap. And I'm not talking like the normal stuff. I mean, these guys would go out into the field and they wouldn't get food because someone decided that it's better to pay for a helicopter to give food to their soldiers. And that was in the 1990s. That is ridiculous that they would say, oh, you do. And I talked to some others that were in Yugoslavia. The conscript troops for the European countries are treated very poorly. And because they said, oh, you're going to do that. And because they say, well, you have to serve anyway. So what is my incentive for increasing it? And usually it's only a year.
They're often pushing for this whole like United States of Europe military. And to my mind, that's just so you can send in the Dutch to pacify the Spanish to pacify the Italians to pacify the Germans. And so, you know what I mean? Like, it's like a very deliberate move that doesn't really have much to do with the common ground between all these people.
What gets me best is they talk about it, but they always rely on the United States anyway to keep them together. But I'm not sure. Colin and I were talking about this before. I just heard that the British no longer have 155 millimeter howitzers. They gave them all away.
I gotta look into. It's not that I don't believe you. I gotta look into that because I mean they have the ability to make more though. I mean they have a fairly.
I mean sometimes it sounds like the West is being run by like a weird suicide cult.
So let's see. Well, this is what gets me about all of these things is they're talking about this, but the problem that I have with our military is it's used as a jobs program rather than to win wars, and our productions facilities aren't set up to produce the wartime, and it didn't help that we gave all of our I say all of our
we're all deindustrialized. It's very hard to support it. Ongoing conflict. I mean, that's how the Russians beat the Germans last time. Really, it's like a bigger base and a lot more material coming in from the West. And
well, they also fight two different wars.
Going back to what was said about the Irish and the famine, was I was living in Tennessee for a while, Nashville, Tennessee area. Well, East Nashville. I'm not going to dox myself if I no longer live there. And I'll go with that argument. And I'm having this conversation with this lady. She's like, the Southerners would have won the war if the Northerners weren't hiring Irish to come over from Ireland. I'm like, wait.
I'm going to say this much and this is what people forget about the Civil War. There was a plan to disperse the army out, the Confederate Army, and to do guerrilla tactics, and that would have completely turned everything around. That said, is General Lee did not want that, and so he said, "No, we're gonna." But there was a plan among some of the generals to do that stuff. But most of the time, and people forget about some of the aspects of the Continental Army. What did Lee do when they went through? They allowed them to get their weapons and march home. and they, the way that we treat modern military and is very different than what they used to do.
It's just like it's a part of the greater mentality behind geopolitics, like zero-sum games, like in every exchange, which I personally hate. It's like, can we at least try and represent a moral position? Like,
So this is what they said. UK was left without 155 millimeter serviceable self-propelled artillery. So it's not just the artillery; it's the self-propelled artillery.
Okay.
So what that means, but that's ridiculous. They've given them away. How in the world are you supposed to do this? It's just, and if you notice the things if people don't talk about this with Ukraine, it's a Lend-Lease program. What we're doing is we're putting them into literal debt.
Yeah, BlackRock is like already buying up a lot of the country.
Well, that's the real question is BlackRock's doing that, but what level of country will they have left at this rate? From a natural
probably there'll probably be a demilitarized rump state. I mean, either that or he just goes like for the big win and invades Paris.
No, well, you know what? Those
I think like half the people in Europe are like, please, I don't care if you knock my house down. Like, just come fix it.
I mean, how bad does it sound that it went this way? And if they attacked Washington D.C., would it be worth actually going to war over that, or saying, well, you know what, we build a new political establishment out?
Yeah, we'll just build the North American Oblast.
I'm not going to completely get into my background, Omen. Now
Yeah, I do.
Other than having some balloons that were sent over here, not recently, I'm talking about during, the Japanese sent some balloons that had some explosive in that they killed a group of
killed like 1 or 2 people by accident.
Right. Other than that, and 9/11, I will always include 9/11. America has not seen an actual war on U.S. soil since the Civil War. I mean, yeah, there was the French and Indian War. There was the war with Mexico for the Alamo. But it's been a very long, long time.
Yeah, but what is it that Emperor Hirohito said about invading the U.S.? He said, like, behind every blade of grass, there's an American with a rifle.
Well, there was that aspect. The other thing that also came down to it is we had a huge industrial base, which we don't have anymore. I mean, anyone that goes through, have a good night, Flady. I mean, as much as I love looking at some of the things, I had an argument with one time. I said, you understand the Germans weren't fully mobilized until 1944, which sounds weird. Sure. Is that their military production didn't even occur to them. If you look at, they actually were producing more in 1944 than they were in the previous years. I mean,
maybe in terms of war material, but they had lost like by the time Stalingrad had happened and they were like on the back foot, they'd lost all their good veterans. And remember, like, German infantry had a vicious like kill rate of like 50%. It was like 50% higher than Allied infantry, like initially, and then just declined really sharply because they wasted all their good guys.
Well, if somebody attacked us, with Caterpillar is not what Caterpillar used to be. But the going argument with Caterpillar is if somebody attacked us and we got into war, I don't know if it was a physical switch or whatever, but the Caterpillar was switched from making tractors to tanks. A lot of the stuff that we used to make here, we have shipped out to other countries. But if a war ever broke out where we were involved, and it wasn't like a war on politics or whatever, I mean, honest God, war. All this BS that we're dealing with our politics would shut up, and us as a nation would become, rally together, and it would be.
I want to believe that, but the problem is we don't have any real threats. We've got Canada. No. Do we have Mexico? No. And then we've got Fortress America. Don't get me wrong for certain things. The problem that I have is that our weapons are intended to be expensive, and they're intended to keep. And this other problem is we used to have hundreds or dozens of contractors, and they've all melded together. So now we only have like 3 or 4 big ones. There is no incentive to roll things off. I was just hearing that the Russians at one point were producing or shooting off more artillery per day than we produce per month for our production capabilities. That is ridiculous from a standpoint of defense. I'm like, we can't even go in there, and now they're exactly. No one would. Well, the problem is the way to invade America is you have to go across the sea. And do we have anything? And the United States for production capacity, this would amaze me. I think after World War II, now admittedly, Europe was completely down, but after World War II, we had something like 50 or 60% of the entire world's production, more than China has in any capacity. We had but you're looking at it, and it's just, and this is where I don't like James was talking about, the working class background. I don't know how many people I've heard go, "Ooh, farmers. Ooh, you work in a factory." I mean, that's the attitude that they have.
Well, you know what? I mean, I did like try and make it in the world of like white collar office jobs and start in administrative areas and work my way up, but I just hated it.
Well, but
when I ended up working with my hands like on electronics and stuff, like I just really took to it, and I had no background in it, but it's like something clicked, and I made a short career out of it. It's not great for your health though.
Well, so did you do electronics or electrician work? I guess
electronics.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
but in like medical, so like hospitals and
I'm not disagreeing with Connell. If you invade the United States, that's a whole different aspect. But the problem that we're having now is we're trying to defend countries that we have no real interest in, and they're trying to gin it up. I'm like, you just wasted whatever goodwill and military firepower. The public is not for getting into a war. I mean, that's what gets me about. Well, great. Guess what?
If Ukraine could be turned into one of the biggest food distributors in the world. They have some of the world's best soil.
Who produces?
They already grow a lot of the world's grain.
Look. What is it? Kazakhstan, Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine produce what? Is it over 40% of the world's wheat?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying
it could be right. I have to look at the numbers, but you could be right on that.
I mean, but here's what gets me about it. They're all talking about this, and I'm not sure if you all heard about Odessa. The Russians said we're going to allow the ships to leave Odessa, but part of the reason that they didn't want to do is they talked about that. Guess where most of the food is going to that's leaving Odessa? They talk about feeding the third world. Where's most of that grain going to? It's going to Europe. It's the dirty little secret. They say it's one thing and said, okay, and I'm a big numbers person. I'm like, okay, let's talk about numbers. And I start going.
They've done that with gas. They've done that with gas as well, like in the last 2 years.
What kills me, this is a little bit closer.
They tell you that it's for one customer, but it's for another. They deal in rupees or something else, and then on it goes. With a small surcharge, but enough to circumvent sanctions difficulties or whatever. German artificers are still fulfilling arms contracts to Russia. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, there are still orders for like special rifles and shit that are being like fulfilled as we speak.
I don't know. I was going to say, my aunt has a place down in Florida. I used to go there a lot. I don't go as often as I would like. They've gotten older and I've gotten busier.
So which part of Florida there, Connell?
Northern Florida. They're spitting distance to Georgia. I mean, you can. So
are you talking Tallahassee or?
Ferdinand area.
Okay, I'm not sure.
Amelia Island. It's on the Atlantic side. Yeah, Atlantic.
The Atlantic, side. Or are you talking the Gulf of Mexico?
No, Atlantic. They're on the coast of Atlantic.
Okay.
If you type up Amelia Island, that's where they're at. I'm not going to dox my aunt by saying
no. That's fine. I'm looking about it. Look, If you know, in a county, I'm not too worried about. I was just curious.
So I went up there. I
Are
mean,
you Connell's aunt? Yes. Oh, good stream. All right, gotta go.
bye, multi-gun man. You take it easy, Haas.
Yeah.
You too, Flotty. Thank you for stopping by. You know, I have a whole lot more. I have fun doing these hangout shows because I never, it's normally me and Oma now, but I never know like James is going to show up or Shadow or Jack tonight for it, So, everybody in chat who decides to stick around, that's awesome. You've got to wander off. I do understand. Morning does come fairly quickly,
especially when you sleep. It's like you go to bed until you wake up, and it's like a whole different day.
God, but no, I was going to say about Amelia Island. They have you go down to Old Town part of Amelia Island, and you'll see a bunch of shrimp ships up and down the docks. And I'm thinking, this place has got to be rich in like shrimp. Every restaurant's got to be selling it by the freaking buckets. No, Connell. What they do is they freeze the shrimp, and they sell it to California. So the seafood
new RPG bookshelf.
Oh,
nice.
It's empty though. What?
It's going to be bolted to. Oh, I've got boxes of things to put in it, but I'm going to put them in some semblance of order. I'm going to bolt it to the wall.
Oh, okay.
So that it doesn't fall on me.
By the way, I got to use the owlbear you sent me. I've yet to paint it because I don't know how to paint
Oh, cool.
ones yet. I'm figuring it out.
God, the amount of owlbears I've found, like, I'm selling and giving away a lot of my 15 and 6 mil because it's just.
But I have to say,
I have so much to deal with in 28 that it's like a bit easier on my hands and my back to work on a larger scale.
The Finn McCool, not Finn McCool, whatever. Finn from the Fianna is probably the other one I've been wanting to, is one of my favorite figs.
Cool. Yeah,
I really do appreciate them. I'm gonna get them dolled up. Actually, I might pay somebody to paint them to be completely, the person. I don't do people very well.
Yeah. Maybe GM Fritz can do it for you.
And the Irish Wolfhound. I always wanted to own one. I prefer mine to be, breathing and eating, but
that one I would just paint white and then like put like a brown speed paint over it and it'll do.
Yeah, I can see that. But yeah, no, I do want you to know.
I've been making some fun purchases lately. I got Undaunted. This is a deck building World War II game.
No, hold on.
And this adds solo and vehicles.
So how much does it weigh? Because it looks pretty hefty.
It's a little bit hefty, but it's small. It's not a big box.
It's not a big box. It just takes up like a 1.5 foot, and it's a little smaller than the Twilight Imperium. But
no, it's not. It's not that big. It's like the size of a novel. That's the original game, Normandy.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And you have like a platoon of guys kind of thing.
No, you know what though is I'm beginning to just like as I'm getting older. Don't get me wrong, I love miniatures, and they're great if you can leave them in the house. But try and take them somewhere else. It's the problem is you're like, well, I have to have everyone over if I want to go play with miniatures.
This is all cards.
Oh well, yeah, I like those with the chips.
No minis,
yeah.
Just cards.
Okay.
Even the battlefield is just little cards. Because you know what, getting into some periods like on top of I'm starting to be a bit more realistic about like what I can focus on at any given time. And so like I'm like, I want to play Greek Warfare, like Hoplite on Hoplite. I'll play this board game.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So we have to ask, what are your favorite board games here?
Ooh, you know what?
I want you to pick.
I've got a real soft spot for zombies.
You can pick 5. You don't have to pick 1. I'm just saying, we're just trying to.
I'll pick a top 3. I'll pick a top 3 just for the sake of brevity. Okay, so I think for Ancients.
Right.
Okay.
This is all the classic battles from GMT games. This is crunchy. Yeah, you can play it over days. It's good fun.
GMT reminds me of the old Avalon Hill, what Avalon Hill used to be.
Yeah. And then I'll just get out the box that I have handy because it's delayed.
Uh-oh.
But
When you say board games, you're not meaning chess.
Zombicide.
Wow, that's cool.
genuinely fun kind of laid back game you can play with like.
Cool.
Cool. I love the fact that it comes with figs.
Well, I mean, that's why I bought my Conan stuff, which I had fun with.
Wait, there's a Conan board game?
Yes, didn't you haven't seen me pull them out?
Oh, I might have. You know,
it's pretty good value. It's pretty good value too. The old Conan board game.
I went all in, and there were a few things I couldn't get from the first one. It sounds like they may be doing some reprintings, but let's see. This is my. Oh, let's see.
I got some cool folio games here as well. This is
Dorking.
Oh wait, you're showing your stuff. Let's have a look.
Yeah, well, look, I got stuff is behind there too. That's also.
There we go.
Yeah, but I mean, not that it's the. Yeah.
All right.
You know, this. I just put that over here. You can of course see my Gloomhaven there. So this is Gloomhaven with it. So that gives you an idea just how. And then I've got these three. I've got the expansions back here.
Holy heck!
Oh,
and then I've got
wow!
a few more over there. Yeah,
that'll give you a lot of stuff you can use for other games, though, right?
And then I also have Scythe over here. You know, which is the.
Oh yeah.
You know, and then, but I'm waiting for my Frosthaven to come in, and then I also got Awakened Realms, and I started going. You know what? Maybe I should.
I've got a really quirky one that I actually have a real soft spot for, and this is based on a 19th century novel that caused a big stir in Great Britain.
Ooh.
Dorking, 1875, The German Conquest of Britain.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so it's like speculative fiction about like late 19th century kind of land invasion.
You know what though, is I was looking at some games, and the problem is that I also bought Monster Apocalypse and went for all the expansions. I'm not sure that's ever going to happen. Unfortunately.
Was that HeroScape? Is that HeroScape you're talking about?
No, it is. You can. I mean, Privateer Press. They were doing. They restarted their Monster Apocalypse. Basically, you get to play the equivalent of Godzilla or King Kong. So you play kaiju, and then it's set in the city, and you set up buildings, and as buildings get destroyed, you get like certain points, or if it's your building, you get certain things, and then you have units that go around, and it's meant to be silly. You know, you pick up your monster, you throw, you can swat and hit a unit and go through it. Oh, okay, first Saratoga, all right. You know, I love some of those games when I was a kid. I absolutely do. But what I really need is this is why we've talked about if I won the lottery or, if somehow, but is I want to have a really nice board where I can have my friends over. I'm sorry, really nice table. And then we can just leave the game as it is. We just put the stuff on top. I mean, those hexagon boards, they're just so expensive.
This is the one you need. This is the one you need because this is just great battles of history. It's a bit more across time.
Okay.
Yeah. So you get a little taste of everything, like, William Wallace, Alexander, Xerxes, Saladin, some battles from ancient China, some nice wooden cubes in here.
Well, I was kind of frustrated that is that there's a game which is a video game called Combat Mission, and I loved it before. Barbarossa to Berlin was the one I started off with because you could modify things. You could, I'm doing this, and at the time they could do what was called a WeGo, which is you did it, the other person did it, and you clicked go, and it would calculate the battle, and you had to sit there for a minute while everyone's going through. And there were times you see the tank coming over, but the tank itself couldn't see the Panzer. And then you're looking over to Panther over here, and you can see the gun swinging. You're like, come on, you can make it. And it was.
The other thing that I've been getting into is these book games. It's like a hex game in a book with like tables.
Oh, yeah.
And they're pretty cheap, and they're like lots of variations of the battle. This is like the march to Moscow, and there are like tables and place to put your dice.
Cool. You know that's I don't really like Spiral Bound, but man, that seemed to be the perfect thing to go for Spiral Bound.
Yeah, I think so too.
You know, you just play open, and then you can, you know, we get the map on both sides and move along. So,
and then this cool guy, which is like paper minis.
Oh,
you can put together.
Oh wow!
You just copy them, and there's like put them onto card, and you can. Good way to play test an era.
Mm-hmm.
And there are rules. There are rules in here and stuff as well to, test them out. Like, so.
I mean, I like what GMT does, which is if you want the game, you have to kind of order it, and then when they get enough orders, then they'll send it to print. I like.
Well, when they do a reprint, they do that, but you can get most of what they do on Amazon. It's pretty easy to get most.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I like
but
that
certain
idea.
Things I've been waiting for.
Oh yeah,
I was waiting for them to redo Pike and Shot.
Then you've got Osprey games, which, to be honest, everything I was familiar with Osprey was with all their books, their historical books. Now they've gotten into RPGs. I'll say the most depressing game I ever played was, I think it's called Labyrinth from GMT.
Was David Bowie in it?
No, it was the War on Terror, and I won.
Yeah, it's moderns, isn't it? It's like Afghanistan, and yeah.
I won it, and because I blew up Saudi Arabia as a terrorist, which destroyed the American hegemony in the whole thing, and all I could, and the guy's like, "Oh, what did you think?" And I said, "It felt too realistic," because I just come back from Afghanistan. I said, "It felt too realistic. I'm depressed. I don't want to play this game ever again."
I don't have any real board games other than the classic board games that most of us grew up with, I guess. Well, I played a lot of chess growing up with my grandpa over in Ireland. When I came to the States, I played a lot of checkers with my mom's dad. He was a huge checker person. And the other 100,000 other board games that they sell to kids, Monopoly, stuff like that. I did go a whole hog on D&D 4th edition board games. Not so I could play the games, but so I can get the tiles and the figurines. Because that was the only thing that the game was worth. It was, was the figs and the tiles. Ooh, that's pretty.
This is lapis lazuli that I bought when I was in Afghanistan. My father has an even bigger one. So it's lapis lazuli and marble, which is a lot prettier.
The Egyptians really like that too.
Oh, I lapis lazuli I love. The thing is that if it gets wet, it rusts because it's really more of iron pyrite that gives it the gold color. And then, of course, I'm not sure everybody can see it, but those are the chess pieces in there. And,
I've talked to Shadow multiple times about, and I'm still working. I haven't painted anything for a while. I need to get back into it. I've just been too stressed.
Yeah.
Painting while stressed, does not make for good results.
Remember, Connell, everything looks better with a wash on it.
That's why you're. Well, with me, it's more of a paint by number. I'm like, yeah, screw this. I don't want to deal with it right now.
There's a lot to be said for like priming them in black and then spraying a darker color, like dark blue or dark red over the top, and then bright red above that, and that's kind of half the job done.
I'm going to put it this way: is just if you can base it. This is why I liked having the airbrush. Man, once you get the airbrush in there, you're basing the minis. It takes like no time, and then you're like, oh, you just base them white. You put just a general wash, and then you like highlight eyes or something, and you can be done if you really want to. And
I was working on it, and I kind of stopped.
It's sort of like knowing what to go ham on. It's like good to like, that's coming along. That just needs a wash to like reinforce the line.
I need to get itty bitty like fishnet so I could put that on the eyes and paint over it to give that they look a bit googly, but once you put a wash over it, it'll like tighten up the lines. Like, and that's technically a Jabberwocky from Alice in Wonderland that I need to finish. I just haven't been in the mood to
Cool.
paint. I've been mainly in the mood to drink, but last 2 nights.
We should have a session where we do both to encourage you to, or I'll get a whole bunch of guys primed, and I've been buying at the same time when I'm selling like out one door, I'm like buying 28s in another door. So I've got 11 fantasy armies to complete.
Gotcha. Well, last night and the night before, I went to this karaoke bar just to hang out with a few people I know, and I didn't want to go. They showed up and told me I was going, and I'm there. I'm drinking.
Did everybody know your name?
No, it wasn't Cheers. Although I'd love to have a bar that looked like Cheers. God, I missed that show. Hey Norm, how's life treating you? Like it caught me with its wife. But no, I'm there, and I got my hoodie on, my black hoodie. It's cold, I got my hoodie and jacket on. I find that my Navy jacket, it's not true Navy jacket, but it's a Navy style cut jacket. Its pockets are deep enough where it holds my beer really well when I want to do something. And I get talked on. I got talked on the stage, and I'm having fun up there. Anyways, I go stand next to the door because I'm about ready to go outside, go check on something. And a lady is like, "So do I need to show you my ID?" I'm like, "Why do you need to show me ID?" "I thought you were a bouncer." I'm like, "Do I look like a bouncer?" And my friends were like, "Kinda."
Yeah, kinda you do.
That reminds me of when I was in Seattle and I went into a jazz club. And I said, "What sort of music do you play here?" And the lady was like, "Jazz." And I'm like, "That can't be possible." And she's like, "What makes you say that?" And I said, "Well, there's a sign outside that says no minors."
Oh. And you know what? After that, they kicked him out.
No, she thought it was hilarious, but I left after like 5 minutes because they were playing like a musical screensaver. Like, you know how sometimes more progressive musical styles can sometimes trail off into like an endless solo.
I don't like jazz. My friend at one point, he says, "Well, we'll find out." And so he decided to mix it up. And I said, "Well, I like this one." He says, "Okay, well, that's blues." He liked this. He said, "I don't like that." I said, "Okay, that's jazz." So he was trying to mix them all up. And he's like, "Well, you don't mind blues. You don't mind fusion. You don't like a couple of other things." He said, "But every time I put in jazz, you just don't like it." And he's like, "Damn, you really don't like jazz." I said,
I'm not huge on it, but to be honest with you, there are very limited hangouts of jazz that I can enjoy, like horror jazz, like things that are kind of deliberately film noir, kind of like bands like Boron and the Club of Gore. They do like really noir detective type soundtracks, and they're great. But like when it's just up and down the scale, and like I like punk and I like computers. Like my mentality with music is much more like primary color based.
I found out earlier I hated polka. I hated polka every time we went somewhere that was like a polka whatever, like for Oktoberfest. My grandpa would love to go check out
Oompa music. Oompa.
I can't stand polka.
Wait a minute. So you don't like Mexican music then?
I've noticed that.
Well, see, everyone talks about it, like, well, Mexicans this. I'm like, you understand that a bunch of Germans went to Mexico, and that's where we hear a lot of the music from. People forget it. Mexico's a country. It's not a race. Okay.
Right.
It's a country with lots of Germans as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the day. I'm waiting for the day where Morrissey finally adds mariachi musicians to his band. Like, then the Mexicanization of Morrissey is complete.
Yeah. At an early age, I hated polka. I hated disco. I can't stand disco, and I didn't like techno.
That's a broad brush. That's another broad brush. I mean, it depends. I mean, if you're talking techno, that's just like, oof, oof, oof. Yeah, that's pretty tiresome. But some of it is very inventive. Oh, you can't walk
okay.
on here. I just prayed it.
He just has flashbacks of Ace of Base playing too long, and he's just every
Yeah,
time he goes
if
into
it's that sort of, if it's
PTSD.
that sort of thing, that'll drive me nuts. Like for sure.
Sorry.
It wasn't. I mean, okay. For example, I was dating this young lady. This was I was living here in the States. I was in the States, and this is before this was years ago. And we went.
I'm
to go
mopping with my feet. I'm not moonwalking. I'm mopping with my feet.
Okay.
That's cool. We went to go see the Batman movie with Heath Ledger and playing the Joker.
Okay.
And she's like, that movie was too dark. I gotta watch something lighthearted before I go home. And I'm looking at the clock. It's like, I didn't say anything. I'm just looking at my clock thinking, damn, I want some food. She's like, tell you what, go see this other movie with me and I'll buy you dinner. And I'm like, I thought I was dating your daughter. Well, if you date one, you kind of dating the entire family. And I'm like, ew. She's like, shut up. But she was a sweet lady. She passed away a couple of years ago. I do miss her dearly. We became better. We were really close up until the end. Anyways, she's like, all right. I'm like, okay. I'm looking at the list of movies that are out, and I'm like, what do you want to see? Would you go see Mamma Mia with me? I'm like, ugh, okay. And Mamma Mia is playing, and I'm like sitting, bouncing my head off the rail because there's a rail bar right in front of me, and I'm just kind of.
But if you don't like ABBA, you don't like music because it's so fundamental. It's terrible, but it's also
if it was
perfectly,
ABBA
it's perfectly written pop music, so you can't really
Am I the only
escape.
person I can't even name you an ABBA song?
Disco Queen or something like that.
I can't even remember. You know what? Some of these things, because I was listening to country during the time of disco, I'm like,
I listen to country. See, anyway, so we're in the movie theater, and I'm just like kind of not bouncing like ding. I'm just like, ugh. She's like, you must really love my daughter to put up with this. And she's like, I don't know what your problem is. There's other people in here with us. I'm like, those two are a couple, and there's like two guys in front of us. Those two are a couple, and she's like, she grabs my shirt, pulls me. Are you sure? I'm like, if it's two guys sitting through this movie together, they're a couple.
Well, it depends if they're sitting with the space.
No, they were. There wasn't a seat between them. They were sitting together.
Were they sharing a parasol? Because that's usually a giveaway.
Anyways, she's like, and at the end of the movie, she's like, "Are you sure? I don't think you're right about them." And they stand up, they put their jackets on, and they take each other's hands and they walk out of the theater. I'm like, yep. And to be honest, I don't care. I don't, whatever, live your life however you want to live your life. That's not the problem. It was just that movie, man alive, that movie. Then having to listen to one of my favorite James Bond have to sing was tragic. Who's
your favorite James Bond?
Pierce Brosnan.
Pierce Brosnan is a national treasure, but the son of a bitch cannot sing to save his life.
Well, you can't be good at everything.
Yes, you can.
Pierce Brosnan is a 4chan meme about guys who like bigger girls because his wife is quite a curvy lady, and so whenever someone posts a bigger girl on 4chan, someone will reply with a picture of Pierce Brosnan with the caption "enlarge."
Well, I'm going to say this much. Well, Pierce Brosnan has been married how long to his wife?
He's very happily. He's like one of the only stable, happy, successul kind of Hollywood people.
Tom Hanks and his wife have had a long career of being married. There's a few of them, but I get where you're going. The other one that killed me. See, I love music. I would go catch an opera any day of the week. I love opera. I will go check the orchestra or a symphony. I love music. I listen to country music, which blows Jade's mind from Table Breakers and Gatekeepers. He's like, I was sitting there talking about country. He's like, you listen to country? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, really? I'm like, why? He's like, you just don't look like a country listening person. I'm like, Am I not white
Do you
enough?
like Chattahoochee?
What?
Do you like that song Chattahoochee?
By Andrew Jackson. No, not Andrew Jackson. That's the president. By Alan
Way
Jackson.
on down to the Chattahoochee. Dooney.
Oh God, I know it got overplayed when I was growing up. That one and a lot of Garth Brooks songs got over fucking played. Jeez, I can't go to one karaoke bar without hearing "Friends in Low Places" there forever.
I hate that song. I've hated that forever.
I got friends in low places.
Okay, so Kelly Shea was really attractive when she was young.
Yeah, she was.
So you know what?
I think she still looks nice. She's just, like an older lady. I think people are a bit harsher on the on women when they pass middle age. It's like the idea is that at that point you're at the head of a family and you have the respect of your children and maybe even your grandchildren. You don't need to.
Well, when I look at it,
satisfy anyone's base urges.
Well, Pierce Brosnan's first wife appears to have died on him. So then, 10 years later,
quite tragically. Yeah, quite tragically. And his new wife was very good with his children and stuff like that from his previous marriage. So
coming from a situation where I had a stepdad, it's nice to have a parent person that is actually good with said kids, not just his or hers.
Yeah. I mean, I think some people, even in adoptive situations, they just they maybe don't give the same level of care without even realizing it sometimes.
Well, sometimes it's just, I hate saying it, women have bad choices in men.
Sometimes guys have bad choices in women.
Oh, I'm not saying that they don't. It's the I always found it funny when women were like, well, he hasn't changed. I'm like, what you marry is what you get, okay? And in the meantime, the men are complaining, the woman's changed completely. Like, yeah, that's the problem. But
there's this TikTok. My daughter likes TikTok, and I get on. I some of the people that are actually fucking hilarious, and I'll listen to them. And there's a comedian that has one, and he's like, women are not as picky as you think, and they don't realize it. They found me. It's like, if you're mad at your husband, you gotta imagine, think about, where did you find him? Oh, you found him at a bar, or he just went down. It's like,
well, the whole thing is you don't go to bars looking for a wife.
Don't go to church looking for a wife though either. That's crazy talk.
Well, but there's what is the I'm getting distracted by looking up other stuff.
Is having a wife really the end goal? Like, honestly,
no. The goal is a family. The problem is that people get into relationships and don't realize the goal is a family. And if you're not if you're not, don't ever get married if you don't want to have a family. And the other problem I think with a lot of people is, women especially, if you're not dating looking for a partner and you're just dating for fun, then you're doing it wrong, because you're gonna be unhappy later on. Because
I think there's probably a happy medium where it's probably expected that people have a little bit of a Rumspringa for the first couple of years out of school, and then actually get their head straight, because this delayed adolescence thing is becoming a real problem in terms of people being able to just cope with day-to-day life.
This comes back to our very beginning part of the discussion. Go work. Go. What amazes me is all these people talk about how, I said, go work. This is one of the things I think that
I still think there are good military pathways as well. I mean, I think when it comes to like Jack's Air Force aspirations and stuff like that, there are wings of the military where it's better to be, especially if you have a career in mind.
I'm going to put it this way. Don't join the military unless you have a very specific thing. It's because, and I hate saying this, it would be very different if this had been 20 years ago. I am not impressed by military leadership going, generals and up. And, that's the problem that I have with it. Is I grew up in the 1980s.
What?
Military
I don't understand what Milley is trying to do. Like, it's almost like the same problem you have with traditional churches, where they try to appeal to a wider audience by compromising what they're supposed to represent. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, hey guys, come and join the military. We love whatever identity you might be, even if it might cause discord in the unit and kind of prioritize your personal feelings over like training and quality and effectiveness.
Well,
you know,
here's the problem I'm having with it is your job is to win wars and kill people. Whether you like it or not, that's the goal. And I haven't seen that in the military in the last 15 years. That's
even if you have a small, like, even if you have a relatively small military, like, it's not just for that. I mean, natural disaster relief is also a huge thing, depending on where you live.
Well, it depends on your type of military. Remember, different military have purposes, but the reality of it is we have something called the National Guard here in the U.S., but at the end of the day, your job is to do that. We have civilians that can do all this stuff. I mean, it's not. That's the thing that gets me is you do have civil servants, because I've tried to volunteer numerous times to help out on that stuff. And actually, I was part of a team to go up for some of that. Go ahead.
Would it be better, and this is me not having a judgment on either side, but would it be better to have a government department when Katrina happened or other major things happened, where they come in and it's military or a mixture of military and civilians, but the Department of Recovery, call it whatever. I'm not going to use the term that we use here because it's a fucking joke, but I'm not getting into that.
Well, normally, Connell, these things would be handled by Army engineering. Like, our army, which, like, is mainly a peacekeeping force. They do engineering projects all over the Pacific, for diplomatic reasons.
Would it be better for a private company to come in and clean up, or a department of the government to come and clean up? What is better?
Here's the problem I have with because I'll be honest, having done some of the stuff and gone over it, the answer is we already have that. FEMA's the one that does it. FEMA then goes and asks requests the military, and there's some weird things that go in on who controls what. The problem that I really have with it is the government is not results oriented. The government is process oriented, and this is an unfortunate aspect to. Don't get me wrong. I knew people that all were part of teams. Like I said, I was part of a team that could be sent anywhere in the world in 18 hours, supposedly is what they told us. So I used to have my bags packed and ready to go, and that's how I got to go to Afghanistan. I also got to go to Cambodia, where they were building, where we were helping the military out as a civilian working under the military, where we would help out, and that was to evaluate a bridge. So it's not that we don't do that, and we did have contractors, and I talked to the contractor, I talked to the military, I talked to some people from the State Department. They all said the same thing. We need better specifications. I think part of the problem that we really have on this is, and this has been true for the most part, and when we talk about Katrina, is people don't understand on how the echelon goes, is the governor has to request aid from the federal government, which did not happen like during Katrina, for number one. And number two is you have to have a really good emergency management. Whenever people say first responders, guess what? Your actual true first responder is not the military. It is not your EMT, your EMS services, your emergency medical services, or anything like that. Your first responders are your neighbors. Your neighbors are the first people that are going to come in and try helping you out. The second thing is that what it usually happens is they're going to send someone looking around. And I knew a guy who was part of a special team for earthquakes. And he was a small guy. The things that I wouldn't like to do, because I'm not truly claustrophobic, but the way that they would have to crawl inside buildings that would partially collapse trying to find human beings. And some of it comes down to looking good. And that's the horrible thing about it is how do I want to put this? Whether it's Katrina or anything else, a lot of them are political appointees who have no experience in emergency things. Now, we do have some stuff for firefighting. We're usually pretty good at. I'm
not saying that firefighting is basic, but we've been dealing with fires for
every year we have fires, and so they already have all of that.
Right.
Yeah,
Where
national emergency.
tornadoes, hurricanes, things like this. Yeah, we get tornadoes, but some tornadoes are fairly knocked over a few things, a tree. Then you got tornadoes that go through a whole town, and it looks like the beginning of a movie. I can't think of that the Twister movie with Helen Hunt.
I mean, I've been through a few hurricanes, and that's the other thing people forget about is nothing moves for a few weeks. Not for a few weeks, for a few days. The problem that I really have with this is, and some of it has to do with economics. And I'm not saying, and what I mean by economics as at the individual person. If you actually go to the FEMA website, they tell you what you're supposed to have, and that's a bare minimum. And even for Katrina, as much as they talk about it, it says you're supposed to have enough food and water for 72 to 120 hours. So we're talking 3 to 5 days. Now, they were able to start pulling those people out within 5 days. But, of course, the optics and everything else. But the problem that I have with it is food, if you're at the bare subsistence level or things like that, they're not there for these people to do things. It's very hard. And the other part is you also have to, and this is where they're afraid of, is whenever you get a tornado warning, your tornado warnings are only 24 hours in advance. They'll put a watch on you, but they aren't sure where it's actually going to hit, and they're not. So, and it's a huge swath. People forget that a tornado will take out things within hundreds of miles. So they pre-position everyone around where they think they're going to be safe. Now, Katrina was being the extreme example, but even like Harvey, which Texas usually deals pretty well with stuff like that, and Northwest Florida did too. But we had these ice storms, and a lot of it was we haven't, like when I was in Northwest Florida in the 90s, we hadn't had a hurricane hit for 25 years or so. And when that hurricane hit, guess what? All of the leaves and the branches, and we're talking Category 1 at this point, had been up there. They had not had a good storm that had knocked down the trees and everything. So now all these weak trees, all the branches came down. We didn't have power for 3 or 4 days. And, that's not the worst part of the island. Some people don't have power for 6 weeks. In fact, I think my friend in the middle of Austin still doesn't have power. I'll have to talk to him, find out if he got power finally. But the problem was the tree fell over on it, and they just come out with chainsaws and they start cutting. And that's some of the things that is Twister. That's a dance movie, isn't it? No, no. But I think that those are the things that come into it. It's not that we don't have it. It's how do you pre-position people? How do you put people out there? How fast can you get them? And then you also have to put people up. So you can't just like plot people down immediately and say everything.
Katrina happened, and a chunk of people got sent to Dallas, surrounding states. There was even a few that made it all the way up here that I thought was interesting. Sure. Tennessee. Anyways. Yeah, no, and I completely agree with what you're saying. It was with Katrina, it wasn't so much the department of whatever stepping in. It was city politics. Like, well, we got that whole section cleared out of those people. If we don't let them move back in, we can, do stuff with it, right?
So here's the interesting part for Katrina. Look at the districts that flooded. The districts that flooded were not the historic districts, which is something that people forget about. Is the historic districts were fine. So we're talking about districts that were from the 1700s. What happened was they built these dikes and levees, and they started pushing people in there. And this is one of the things I hate about government assistance is I like the idea at one level. The problem is that people become dependent on it, and when they become dependent, then they stop acting as they expect government to pull them out. And they lose a lot of their autonomy. And that's one of the things that I found very disturbing was you're giving these people a false sense of security. You're literally 8 feet below sea level. I
think that's why you've got to move a lot of those things to more of a co-op level, organize them locally. If you have federal involvement, you can say, all right, well, we'll fund you a church hall so you can assemble people, or we'll fund you another fire truck or whatever. But it's best to actually give people a sense of involvement in that aspect of life because you can still resource them. They can still get some of their tax back in help in setting these things up. But just like with a lot of disaster relief, I think the co-op model is actually the more true socialist model than like having some massive government entity from millions of miles away just throw money at whatever problem comes up and hope that it moves fast enough.
Well, the problem is it takes 3 to 5 days to expect the federal government to get involved. So you're dealing with all the people there and all emergency medical services. If you've ever been through a hurricane, no one's coming to save you. You call the fire department in the middle of a hurricane, they're like, we will try getting to you later. And don't get me wrong.
They tell you to stay inside.
If you did not leave, this is on you.
Well, and the problem that you had there was these people were completely dependent. So, we're talking welfare. They don't have a car. The city did not put people on buses. They said, oh, and then, of course, the problem was that there was a lot of fake news. Everyone was reporting, oh, this is going on at the Superdome. And you find out, well, maybe that isn't really going on. Well, there's a go fast for 24 hours. I think part of the problem really comes down to, this is what I find disgusting from government level, is they view these welfare systems as a positive if they get more people on the system rather than getting people off the system. And I don't think
it is, there's multiple cities out there. I think I live in one of them where I can have a garden. If I didn't live in an apartment and I actually had a house, I could have a small garden, but I can't have chickens. I can't have any livestock. So if I'm working at, let's say, I want to say mart, and whatever word you want to put with that, this is keeping me out of trouble with them.
Yeah.
They only pay their employees X amount. They have publicly says, yeah, we know how much we pay our employees, and we're happy that they're able to get SNAP or food stamps or whatever. We just pay them enough where they can afford to get, or they're not financially, they are eligible to get that. That is not a living wage.
Okay, first off, no one's owed a living wage. Number one. Here's the problem that I have with a lot of it. They're talking about SNAP. You know what? You can probably make it if two or three people are working together, all at Walmart. But here's a few things I don't like. One is you get it at the industrial base. Once you get the industrial base, people don't have a chance. Walmart is great if it's your first job. Fine, you can go do that stuff. I mean, that's the problem that I have with it is that.
Well, McDonald's is supposed to be your first job, and isn't there is a McDonald's down in your area. When I say your area, I mean Texas. That's kicking all but maybe two people out and making it completely robotic.
Well, I'm going to say this much: you understand McDonald's are owned by individuals, right?
They are yes, I understand franchises, but I understand it's individuals making this choice. It's not a global, it's not the global octopus eating the world. I get that. But you're taking, not you as a person, but they are taking the opportunity for the first job away from the teenagers.
Well, here's the problem that you have with it, and I like if you ever listen to The State Against Blacks by Walter Williams, explaining on how that really killed a lot of, it really hurt the black community in particular, because many of them were doing that, so they didn't have jobs. He said, how are you supposed to get any kind of training? That's one. But the other problem, of course, is that we ship things off overseas where we used to have manufacturing jobs. And that's the problem that I have with a lot of it is, well, we can't put tariffs up. I said, well, excuse me, why are the tariffs cheaper than if I maintain something here in my own country? But some of it just comes down to the same thing, whether it's, point of illegal immigration. Is where does that hurt the most? It hurts the poor and the unskilled the most, because you're just bringing in more people to compete with them. And that's the problem that I have with all this is the people making these decisions are like, oh, I don't really care. In the meantime, I feel sympathy for a lot of these poor kids. And I'll tell you this much. The only reason what helped me out was working it does suck, but sometimes you're going to have to go through it. But I'm not saying living wage. The problem that I have with it is even if they pay you, like, I think this is what amazes me. There's a Dairy Queen offering $16 an hour right now.
Yeah, okay. That's not right up here as well.
Okay.
Well, no, I think it might be $1 less, but it's still that's
Okay.
$15. $15 when I was 16. That was forklifting. That was a forklifting job.
But here's the thing: Texas does not have that, and this isn't a small town. We're talking a town of maybe 5,000 to 7,000 people.
Right.
How in the world is this dairy? They can't find people willing to work. Now, I've also heard some things of. Listen to Temple Graydon talk about some things that like James is talking about. There are a lot of people who like to work with their hands, and we're losing the technical skills. Like, the problem that I have with it is when they go to college, not to go to college, they go to school. They're not teaching them how to work with their hands and things, up to the point that we're getting veterinarians who have to learn surgery who have never used a pair of scissors, and they have to train and learn how to use a pair of scissors. We can't treat children like they're.
Well, nursing is another profession where forcing people to become degree nurses creates this weird gap where you've got lots of really highly trained nurses with low practical experience and basically porters stepping in and getting like a day certificate to, administer meds and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean. The thing is, like, it's very easy to look at any other group of people and say but for the grace of God go I, but we're all going to be affected by automation, and it's going to be really easy to look at one profession and go, oh well, should have planned ahead, but it's coming for your profession next, whatever it is,
Well, I was talking to this lady who is 10 times smarter than I am, and I'm no fucking slouch.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking. She has a master's degree. No, she has a doctorate in science and a doctorate in engineering. She is a smart lady. Whenever I have questions about quantum physics, she's the person I go talk to because she can dumb the hell out of it for me.
Oh, even better. Yeah.
Right. And I'm no slouch. I mean, I get like maybe 5% out of 100% of it, but I'm working at it. Anyways, and I'm sitting there talking to her about it, and she's like, as a teacher, it's just a freaking nightmare anymore. I'm like, we're doing this wrong. She's like, how are we doing this wrong? We should not be forcing kids to go to college. Not every kid needs to go to college. Some kids should just be shipped off to trading school to find out what they want to do. It being a mechanic.
Yeah, I wish I discovered the soldering iron a lot earlier.
Or welding. Welders make great money.
Well, see. Here's the thing that bothers me is I think is they do this pipeline and this is where I don't have any problems with the military or things like that. This is why you want to do infantry for 2 years, fine. And I talked to a guy who was in special forces and he got out. I said, why did you get out at 10 years? Because he could have retired at 20. He's like, there's nowhere to go. I think he was a Marine recon. Anyway, he says, yeah, there's nowhere to go from that. But part of it, I think, really comes down to is when people graduate from high school, they should say, you can't go to college for 2 years. You have to go work for 2 years. I don't care what it is, because it amazes me on the people who don't go directly from high school to college. If they have to
in our high school, a lot of guys were already going to technical college like a day a week. And doing a work placement for 2 days. Doing a work placement for 2 days a week. You'd only see them at school. For sort of maths and English kind of thing,
My point is you have to spend 2 years after you graduate from high school before they send you to college. Now again, technical school's different because you're trying to learn a trade. But why do I care if my electrician has a degree in not a degree. Why do I care if he has 6 hours in literature? Dude, I don't care if you can do literature. Could be a slightly Soviet inclination of mine, but I think that it's not ham-fisted to actually apply that trade school methodology to many more fields where people are actually because those guys were given a certain degree of confidence in their abilities and were able to make connections and find work and really early, they went out of school and got into a good job, and there's absolutely no reason why that can't happen in other fields. yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
then that's fine. But just let me get the rest of this out before I forget it. But my concept and was like, you put these kids. Not everybody is smart enough to go to college. Not everybody has in them to make 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, depending on your degree and what you want to do with it, for college to work.
It's a pain in the ass, to be honest with you.
Right. So you put these kids into a work program, and this is what you do. Once they graduate their 2 hours, you attach them to a union of some sort. Plumbers, welders, so forth and so on. When you become a full gilded member, guild, is that right?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, but professional.
You get like maybe a small house, maybe a 2-bedroom house, and you just
No, I don't want to create trade cartels.
No.
Screw that.
Let me finish. Then by doing this, you have put more numbers into the workforce. You have given them something to work for. Now, once they get that worked out, maybe they want to start a family. Not going to college, well, I have to pay off the college debt, pay off whatever, and then I'll think about having kids. Well, now you're in the freaking 30s. Well, I'm getting too old to have kids now.
So I'm going to bring this up.
Why not just cut people's tax by 10% for every kid they have?
I'm going to bring this up.
You know what I mean?
Well, I'm going to bring this up a little bit different, which is I understand some of that, and I know some of them are paying. The problem that I have in some cases, well, here's the problem that I have with it. Most kids don't know what they want to do with their life. They go to college. They send them there. They don't know what they're going to do. They're not motivated. They kind of like, oh, I'm going to take this because it's fun. You know, what was it around here is literally, and then Millie, this is long ago. What was the degree that paid the least? Psychology. In psychology, and I knew a girl who got a degree in literature or whatever, and she had to get a master's to go into library science. Guess what she was doing when she graduated school while she was waiting for her master's? She was working as a waitress. You could have skipped 4 years of college and however long. The problem now we're talking the U.S. and I don't know about other areas, but if you go to like in Iraq, guess what? You either you pass your test or you don't go to college at all. And so I knew a lot of people which was funny because doctor was number one and then number two was engineering. And that's where they send it to you for free. Now, Millie, only like very small percentage. But the problem that I have with it is that colleges have stopped trying to teach people and they're trying to indoctrinate. And the other part that comes down to it is if you want a degree in literature, here's my suggestion. Go to Amazon, go buy 400 books of the great, go find like the best 100, the top 400 books. And that will cost you, what is it? I'm sorry, for $20 each. $20 each. That puts you at $8,000. Go read those books. And guess what? You will know more literature than most of these people who've gone through college. And that's the problem I have.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for like the Penguin Classics box at the bookshop being a good working man's library. Like, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, I had a very brief tilt at university. I just found it too expensive to maintain. I didn't find, even though I was doing mostly humanities subjects, I didn't find it to be too woke or anything. I just found like the focus was not that interesting. Maybe the focus area was woke, but the material hadn't become that way yet.
I'm not
like the things that...
Go ahead. Sorry, Connell.
I went to college the first time on a rugby scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
I knew the game. I could play the game. I was the shortest guy on the team, which was always kind of funny. But I was a hooker. Jim, you know rugby, right? So I was either a prop. The halftime I was a prop, or the other half I was a hooker. And that was the two positions I played. And I did them well enough. I would never go pro. And you don't go pro rugby player here in the States. That just does not happen.
I was only useful as a full forward.
Okay.
I just run at the other guys and use my size.
I get that. Anyways, but for college, I have to figure out what I want to do in college. Wasn't really planning on to go into college. My plan was the armed service, just to, and I'll work it out from there. I was going to be a Marine. I didn't expect to live past 20 something. I figured, whatever, because I was an idiot. Anyways,
I was under a lot of pressure to join, just to kind of tidy up, like, oh, well, he's got somewhere to go. But I think I would have been a bad fit at the time. I think I probably didn't have the matureness of mind to deal with all that discipline. I wanted to kind of coast around for a little while and be ridiculous.
I majored in culinary arts. I knew I like cooking, and you know the old adage: if you do something you love, you're not really working. Blah blah blah. I can cook. So I was already pretty good at it. But as a side major, I took philosophy. You know what philosophy is good for? Other than arguing with you two, not a damn fucking thing.
Well, here's what I'm really coming down to. It is the point of going to, if you have to pay to pay to go to college, you're doing it either because you enjoy it or because you're looking for a job. And my point is that the government should not be giving funds if it's not going to lead to a work aspect. And I think that this is the problem that I have with our modern, oh, but you got to go to college. Guess what? Go get a bunch of books from Amazon. They're pretty cheap. They're going to cost you between $10 to $25. And in Connell's case, since you can correct me, but you have problems reading. Is it dyslexia or so?
Dyslexia and translexia.
Okay,
I can't only spell, but the letters will get up and move on me.
Okay, so at that point,
so do you do more like audio books and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And that's my point.
So you just learn in a more auditory way, basically.
Yeah, but my point is that with the audiobooks, it's what Audible is $15 a month or something. You can get the classics on there, and guess what? You can still spend less money. What is it for? If you're going to buy it, if you listen, let's say that you listen to a book a week, guess what? You're still spending less money to buy your
well, the thing is, without sounding too anti-intellectual, a lot of people who I know who are maybe a little bit overeducated are as daft as can be. Really, like it's just like I respect their specialty, and I don't think it's like they don't have anything else to offer. But like, look at the last 2 years. Who were the easiest people to convince to kind of go along? It was kind of all the smart professionals and people who were just too tied up in world affairs and day-to-day life to really question it,
Well,
the biggest complaint I got when I was down in not Champaign, the biggest complaint I got when I was being a DM down in Missouri was I was too much of an intellectual. I can't even say the word. Intellectual snob.
Well, here's what gets me is when I hear the word high Gygaxian, and all I could think is, did you ever read The Dying Earth? Is these people act like somehow people forget the books were written for college students. Number one, number two, all rule books at that time basically sounded the same of what Gygax was doing. If you actually go read those, it's just like the GM.
Wasn't he a math teacher in some high school?
I don't know. I don't remember what.
Connell, are you drinking soy sauce?
No. I'm drinking Mountain Dew Pitch Black because I hate myself.
Oh, right.
It
Okay.
matches the color of my soul.
If he's drinking soy sauce, that's like hardcore love of salt.
Well, but I mean, if you look at this, and this is what all these people don't want to do is, well, you have to do this. You have to look. I wanted to go. At the end of the day, they're trying to say, well, we're trying to create well-rounded people. Well, you know what? How about we just simply say, we're going to try making you have a skill that you can get a job with, and you're going to leave, and that's the only reason you have debt, and you should be able to pay off your debt in a year or two.
I wish they were that explicit when you were 18 or 19. I had to be an idiot for like 6 or 7 years to figure that out for myself. I wish they would just tell you that. Honestly,
there are minor rubs to that thought, though. Let's say you go back to Virginia in the 1950s, 60s, coal mining town. I mean, you're basically shackled to that town because your parents worked there. Your parents weren't paid real money; they were paid company money. And after you're done with high school or whatever,
eighth grade, my grandfather came exactly from that. There's a reason he joined the Air Force. that's, and I can't remember if he was 16 or not. I'll have to ask my father. I think he was 16 years old when he joined. He lied about his age. But
well, it's not like mining towns shouldn't economically diversify over time, or that there shouldn't be a plan for that, or that people shouldn't have the foresight to request that. But those things were the making of some places. That's just how some places get started, right?
Here's the thing: is if you're going to go to college, which is my real point, if you're going to go to college, you should be leaving with a trade skill. You should be leaving with a skill that allows you to go into your profession. And the problem that I have with it all too often is, oh, I'm just going here because my parents want me to go here. And it started becoming like, this is what got me is I was talking to people when I was in Chicago. Oh, but I want my son to go to Northwestern. And Connell knows how expensive Northwestern is. I went, why are you sending him to Northwestern? You know what the excuse was? Well, they'll help him get through college because if he goes to a public university, he's going to have to really struggle and work hard compared to everybody else. And University of Chicago, you know how much University of Chicago was if I wanted a master's degree? $90,000 a year. I was not making that kind of money as a professional engineer up in Chicago. And I said, this is ridiculous. This is where, to me, you should defund colleges massively. And I hate saying it is, you treat them like trade schools and say, you know what, if you want to go to a private university, fine. But guess what? The U.S. government will not pay you to go to a private university. If you want a degree in literature, fine.
Not if the study focuses primarily on hating America and sterilizing the next generation of children. Surely, you know what I mean? It's if you want to do if you're going to create a great American novelist in every classroom, maybe there's a good trade-off. But the reality is what's taught is so deconstructivist that it just feels self-defeating.
I mean,
you're throwing good money after that.
Colleges are now. I mean, I'm not saying all colleges were this way, but you also have to look at what the guy, I can't think of his real name, the Unabomber, incredibly brilliant guy, absolutely freaking brilliant. He was a little weird to begin with.
Wait. You know that he was experimented on as part of MK Ultra.
They screwed him up.
He was odd to begin with, but absolutely brilliant. Then he went to college, and the government's like, well, he's odd, and he's incredibly smart. Let's see what we can do with this. Colleges / government have already slightly screwed with multiple people over the generations going to college. This is not a new thing.
Well, here's what really came down to. If you look at colleges from way back, people generally, even for the Russians, most of them went through and they went for engineering and stuff. And if you went through the humanities, it was something. It wasn't until the GI Bill came out that the universities really exploded and the quality went down by a lot.
Money. Oh yeah, they got.
And the problem that I have with it is, and I'll use A&M as an example. Why is my college regent, I think, or whatever he was, president, making $1 million? First off, you're getting public funding. Why are you making more than the president? That's what bugs the hell out of me. And that's one. And then number two is, excuse me, you're if you're getting federal funding.
No, I get what you're going with. I don't disagree with it. It was a comment about being paid than the president. The president of these United States is a servant to its people. He is not a monarch.
Our prime minister gets paid more than your president. It's really weird how
it wasn't supposed to become the president for the paycheck. That was never part of the deal.
Well, but the same thing should apply to presidents for universities.
I don't disagree with that. It was just the president remark. It's the president wasn't supposed to be. It wasn't a lifetime career. Being a congressman or congresswoman, whatever, wasn't also supposed to be a lifetime job. You go in there, you do your terms, and you get out. Now it's how long can I suck on this teat and make millions off of it?
Well, see, here's the thing though, is their money isn't really where, I would rather pay, I hate saying this, I'd rather pay every congressman $50 million, but they have to balance the budget, and that would save us more money And if they can't balance it sounds funny, but if they made $50 million a year, guess what? But they have to balance the budget and they can't raise taxes. Under those two aspects and they have to pay down the debt. Under those two aspects, and guess what? If they can't do those things, then guess what? The paycheck gets cut until the point they make nothing, and say that was one. But here's what really gets me about the whole thing is I'm not worried about that. Is if you're getting federal funding for which is a public university. We're talking public university. We're not talking about private. Private, they can, you can do whatever you want.
Private's private.
Yeah, private is private. But guess what? Is if you're private, you should not be getting any federal funding because look at Harvard. Harvard can pay for all of its students. Why do you have to pay to go to Harvard at all? Harvard is
sitting on a land grant to begin with.
Harvard has more money in its things where it can pay everyone. Harvard is basically a hedge fund that uses a university to evade taxes. That's what Harvard is.
I haven't, that was never an opportunity for me. Actually, I did send in a paper, an application to go there for college, and they did accept me.
We don't have this whole prestigious, non-prestigious university thing here. We just, you go to the one nearest you.
When I graduated high school, my aunt's like, I want you to fill out 5 of these, 2 that you really want to go to, and 3 they're safeties. So I put one out for U of I, got a scholarship there. Didn't know I was going to get a scholarship there. Put one out as a joke for Harvard. Why not? They're going to say no. I got yes from. Just hear me out, really good. Okay. I got a yes from Harvard. My aunt and uncle's like, funny, we're not paying for you to piss and drink your way through Harvard. I'm like, fine, but yeah.
So that's fantastic that you had that. But I mean, the problem that I have with so much of these things is that you're putting students in there for $120,000 worth of debt. That for degrees coming out that pay $30,000 to $40,000 a year, and you can only pay a bare minimum. And that's part of the problem that I have with it. Number one. Number two is this is the other thing that we want to talk about. Now, my friend may argue with me as a doctor, but I get mad for a lot of this with the doctors. But the whole point that really comes down to this is if you're a public university, you should be treated as a public servant for number one. And then, to me, cutting a lot of these universities by, half, that's part of it. The other one that comes down to it is
also the piece of paper the qualification you get at the end of it should be worth more or less the same wherever you get it.
There are certain,
here there are prestigious universities and there are less prestigious universities, but it's not as emphasized as it is in the US. As long as you have a qualification in your field, that's the main concern,
So that only matters for your first job here in the US. After that, it's all your experience. That's what really matters.
That's also another. I've always annoyed the hell out of me for restaurants. We're looking for people that has culinary arts experience. I just graduated. I have a degree, which I don't, but let's say I did. Sorry, congratulations for graduating from the Culinary Arts Institute of blah blah blah, Paris, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, or wherever. But you don't have the experience that we're looking for to cook. But I just spent all this money to go through this program. Yeah, but you don't have the experiences. We don't want to be your grinding stone. We want somebody who's already sharp.
Well, see, I liked, what was it? This is what I kind of wish they would do. I know that Wolfgang Puck does this. Let me see you cut up an onion. I mean, they're very simple things that they can do and say, okay, here, we're going to do like 3 things. Bot. Let's see you cut an onion because you're going to start at the bottom level if you haven't worked before anyway. But no, I agree with you. Well, the problem that I had when I was in Destin, not that I was doing it, but I knew people that were in Destin. Destin is it's a tourist town. So they always say, oh, we'll give you permanent for these chefs. And the chefs will work there. And then as soon as the tourist season's done, they fire them.
Was it you I was talking to? It was could very well be you. When I say you, I mean Oma now.
Yeah.
Small towns in America. I don't know if it's so much of a big deal anymore, but I remember it being a thing. They have a kid in there that's extremely brilliant. Friend is like, well, if you go to college and become a doctor, we'll pay for that. but you have to work here for the next 4 to 5 years after you graduate to be a town doctor, which I think is brilliant. I think we should go back to that.
So I agree with you. Well, here's the thing: has anyone heard of, which is a great video, because I find it funny because these are some of how they have the farmers, but it's Dr.
Holiday.
No, it's Doc Gloffman or something like that.
Oh, I was thinking you were talking about the Michael J. Fox movie from the 80s.
No. This is an actual guy, and he comes over and he has a great one about the pain scale, and he says, "Hey Doc, the farmer came in saying that his back bothers him." He said, "Well, what is it? What is this pain scale? From 1 to 10?" He said, "I came in, didn't I?" He's like, "Oh crap." He said, "When did it bother him?" He said, "Oh, he was putting up a fence. Did his wife tell him to come, or did he come by his own?" "Oh, he came on his own." He's like, "Oh my God." That's it. He starts like, "We need the crash cart. We need this." And he says, "Did he finish the fence?" He said, "No, Doc, he did not finish the fence." He's like, "All right, get Texaco." I mean, it's pretty funny listening to it, but that's exactly how it is. And one of them was, he said, "Hey Doc, what's this one guy doing?" He says that he needs a refill on this prescription for Delilah. He's like, "Is Delilah his wife?" He's like, "No, Delilah is his cow. He's using the cow medicine." And he says, "Well, who's the pharmacist?" He says this. He says, "Well, is that the animal pharmacist or is it the human pharmacist?" He's going, "You think we have enough to afford 2 pharmacists? It's the same one." It's hilarious. Go watch it. It's Dr.
I think it was also you that said, have these vet people do a few more years in veteran school after they do humans, and they could, if you go into a farming town, anywhere in the world, and are able to work on the cattle and on the humans, yeah, I get what you're saying. And having family members that are doctors, I have a few friends that are lawyers, but I don't know how it works with them. Every so many years, there's a floodgate that opens up, and all these really high-end hospitals like, "Please come. Then they get their number filled. Then they close those floodgates. And I just graduated. Well, you're 6 months too late.
It's let's see. I found him. It's Dr. Glaucom Flecken.
What a freaking
Glaucom Flecken, and he has it. It's pretty funny because he's an actual doctor. I think he's an ophthalmologist, but he does it like in rural. But he makes fun of like rural medicine, and it's like just listening to it because I work with some of these farmers for my job, and it's pretty funny listening to them. Some of them will come in and they'll just walk in and like, "Look, Doc, I've got to do this." It's like, well, it says, "Well, you know what? If you can't take care of me, I'll just lance it myself." And like, "Hold on," It's like,
no. I can be guilty of that. I know a few people out there. I mean, between rugby and boxing, pain is just, it hurts. How bad does it hurt? Your arm is out of joint. You have dislocated what? Oh, that explains why I can't move like this.
To be honest with you, I avoid doctors because I haven't found them to be that helpful in the last few years. I kind of feel like
be more helpful than freaking
not
doctors.
making reference to any particular event, but just even with my own injury, they're sort of like, they kind of go, "Oh well, maybe it'll fix itself over time," and that.
And you have a slightly different medical system. The problem I have is I'm paying you, and I say, "Okay, look, I have gout. I'm doing this. I'd like to get, and it's in my records. I would like to get a prescription for this." And like, "Oh, we don't do that anymore unless it's really bad." I'm like, "Really?" That was one. I said, "Okay, fine." For drugs, they said, "All right." Then the other one is, "Hey, I'm having problems," and I'm pointing out like the tendon. Like there's this great application called the Human Body or Human Anatomy or whatever, and it comes over and like shows you the muscles and everything else. And I said, so I went into the doctor with my iPad, and I came in and I zoomed in. And I said, "Okay, look, this is where it hurts my foot, right there in this tendon, and then right here over here." And he said, "Oh, that's really cool. That's very interesting." He said, "Here, let me give you some drugs." And I'm just going, "Look, I want this resolved." And thank God for you, as much as it sounds bad, you have to do your own research before going to the doctor. And I'm going, there used to be a time, and again, I don't mind it so much, where the doctors actually were useful, but my friend is a pathologist. He says, "Oh no, we're told to stay in this little box, and we're not allowed to go out." And it's not. Hey, you know what? Maybe you should go to a chiropractor. You know what? Maybe you should go to a massage therapist, or maybe you should go to a physical therapist, and they will help resolve these things. And
I mean, my GP is pretty good, and I do pay for my own health insurance because it's just better that way. But we don't really have socialized medicine. We have a co-payment system. You know, it's more like what Obamacare was, or, like that. It's the idea that it's like East Germany, and you can just walk into any clinic and, get heart surgery or whatever. It's not the case.
Well, and people forget that, there's different things that go on. Well, the problem that I have with a lot of it was, there's certain numbers, there's certain, don't get me wrong about our healthcare system. It's completely messed up because it's like the worst of all worlds. The government overregulates for number one, and then healthcare overregulates, or they determine what they'll pay for. And then the doctors are not making, as much as people talk about it,
having worked a lot on the supply side of your medical system, particularly, like I worked for an American company, the price gouging is insane. That's where the real crime is. It's like the prices they set are just incredible, like off the charts.
Is my friend was talking about an ER doctor was making $500,000 a year. Guessing how much his malpractice insurance was?
Oh,
how much? Millions, right?
$100,000 a year. So when you start hearing this, doctors make $500,000 a year, I'm like, okay, take out that medical insurance, and all of a sudden they're only making $200,000. That's a big difference between what you think it is. But of course,
they also make pretty good cuts of sales on like various medications and stuff like that. Like, when I signed up for medical cannabis, like I was like, oh, this might be quite difficult to get. Like, this is quite a new thing in Australia. Mm-hmm. And it's generally, most of what you get is not psychotropic anyway. It's just the pain relief. But or if it is, it's like it's very mild. But I'm amazed. They send me emails going, oh, come and get your prescription. Like, like they actually hound me to buy it, all the time. Like, I'm guys, I've still got the same container I bought like 3 months ago.
Well, here's what gets me about it. And I was going through this before I went to Iraq. They were supposed to have a year's worth of medicine. Well, your insurance will only pay for 30 days at a time. I said, how much is it different if I pay for it completely out of pocket? They're like, instead of being, I forgot what it was. Anyway, it's like, instead of $30 a month, it'll be $60. I'm like, look, give me a year's worth. Let's get this over with. And it's, but that's the problem that I have with this insurance aspect, which is, it's going to be a long-term thing. Why can't you give me the long-term medicine? No, well, I'm going to pay for this. You have to come back every month. Well, first off, you're wasting my time anyway, because at what point is my time valuable? I can get into, I'm not going to get into this, but it's like the worst of all worlds.
Yeah, I just noticed it, and I have kept you over by 30 minutes, almost 30 more minutes than you wanted to now.
Yeah, I was about to head out about like 3 minutes.
Yeah. So
anyway, James, it's good talking to you. How is your back doing, by the way?
Oh, not too bad. Not too bad. I do a lot of stretching, and I have a new mattress and a new pillow, which helps a lot.
Okay, so what are they? What are the brands?
Purple.
The mattress brand is called Emma. It's like an Australian company, and I forget where the pillow's from, but I'll find out for you if it's helpful. Yeah. It's a V pillow, like quite a big.
Oh yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
Well, I have to laugh because I know that Kyle doesn't like it, but I like the My Pillows. I bought the really expensive purple pillows.
I don't mind the pillows. The pillows are really good quality. It's just the person that is like,
no.
Mike
Lindell is definitely in the ballpark of correct about some things. It's just he doesn't know it.
Well, at the end of the day, I really don't care what political position he has. at the end of the day, though, is I just have to.
It's funny how like everybody else can lobby for their position, but he doesn't, and they try and crucify him, right? Like it's like, well, you know, you can write him off as crazy, or you can watch his presentation and then go, oh, I don't agree with that, or I agree with that, or I agree with this one part here, but the rest is bullshit. You know, like.
Well, there's some of that, but at least he brings up some more stuff. But you know, my favorite is if you ever watch Alex Jones go off about talking about how they're using babies for all sorts of stuff. See, I can tell you going through this battle. Guess what? I found the documents that said he was correct from the University of Pittsburgh.
I mean, I'm not
he's got a reasonable strike rate.
Yeah,
his strike rate is okay.
Well, see, the problem is that it's the personality presenting it sometimes rather than the information itself.
Right. The information, if the information is correct, that's fine. It is the theater class that he's giving that drives me up the damn wall.
Well, and there is an element of like guesstimation, like taking like existing conspiracies and creating a meta conspiracy out of them. I mean, I love conspiracy theories. But the problem with people I know who are really into them is that they believe all of them concurrently. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean, like I said, there's some.
It gets to the point where it's like nothing is real. You know what I mean? It sort of becomes.
There's multiple people I know that love that TV show, Alien History on the History Channel. And every time I've literally tried to watch that show. They've said, you need to watch this episode. You'll think it's really interesting. And I'm watching it. It's like, where's my whiskey? Because I'm going to need like 3 or 4 glasses just to get through this episode.
So I'm just saying this because I like listening to him. Graham Hancock has such a nice personality. But
that's what I was going to mention. Yeah. I mean, I don't agree with a lot of what he says, but some of it I can conceivably get behind. And the thing is, if you read old historians, like, you know, kind of Edwardian era Egyptology and stuff like that, like what he's saying is not that controversial. You know what I mean? It's
how it's presented that drives me up the wall. It's funny because these same guys I'm talking about. Well, if I can jump my ass for watching Oak Island. But they'll sit there and watch Alien History. I'm like, really, guys?
Oak Island.
So I'm going to bring this up. The problem that I have with like Ancient Aliens, and this is, I say, it's a hypothesis. It's not a theory. Stop using the word theory. It bugs the hell out of me. For number one. Number two is this is what I like about Graham Hancock is even if he's only right 10% of the time, he's at least asking questions that aren't being. Now, see, I have friends that are archaeologists, and this is one of those great things I like to talk to them about, is there's a lot of things that are presented by academia as 100% truthful. And when you dig down, they're like, yeah, we did off like one little.
Well, it's a lot of conjecture. It's like when you start researching the ancient Greek position on homosexuality, you realize, wow, this is really complex, and like it seems like it was actually universally hated and condemned about 99% of the time. Like, yeah.
Well, hell, Julius Caesar was considered a power bottom. He was the mistress to a high-ranking, wealthy guy back there. So
that sounds like graffiti. That sounds like graffiti from a rival house to me.
Well, it's you know, some of those things, you know, that doesn't make sense from a rival house. And yeah, there is a lot of slander, but at the end of the day, my point is that this is what I want is I want people asking questions. I like going over, like I've gone twice on the.
He doesn't pretend to be scholarly either. Like he's just, you know, I found this. Here's this. This is interesting. You know, he's not. He's quite personable, and I don't agree with everything he says. I don't think everybody should have psychedelic experiences necessarily. You know, I may disagree with the tech level specifically, but like a lot of the other stuff he's talking about, specifically the movement of people and navigation, like I can get behind that easily. Easily.
I mean, being an engineer and listening to Christopher Dunn talk about some of this stuff, but my real point is, even if he's only 10% right, that's a huge amount. And even my friend who's not, who worked in Crete. He was going like, "Oh yeah, we found aqueducts going about 8,500 years." I said, "Wait a minute."
Was it the last thing I heard? Sorry for cutting you off.
Oh.
Continue.
Okay. So he was
You know
saying,
why?
like,
You know why I do it is because I've always got like a 1 second delay. So I'm always. This is why I don't stream.
Oh, we forgive you. You're Australian. You're not real people, anyways.
well, see,
That, and I'm deeply ignorant.
We know that you have monkey feet because you're holding on for dear life so you don't fall off. So we have to. No.
So that proves the Earth is now flat.
It's not flat. It's a spinning. It's a toroid. That's my conspiracy theory. I believe it may be a toroid.
But again, the whole point really comes down to, I don't have to agree with everything. Like, I love listening to stuff from Randall Carlson, which I can tell which books Graham Hancock takes from Randall Carlson, and which ones aren't. And you don't have to agree with everything. But my question really comes down to, and this is what I feel. What is wrong with asking questions? It's just like all the people who yell and scream, "Oh, flat earthers!"
Nothing. It's good. It's good fun. It's good fun, and it's interesting, and it opens up new lines of inquiry. The only thing is, like, I do have one friend who is really into this stuff, like in Australia, and as a consequence, he has no interest in history. He thinks it's all fake, and I'm just like, that's a terrible place to be. Like, in terms of. I'm like, you can walk before you can run. You know what I mean? Like, maybe read a couple of accepted history books. I bought him for Christmas. I bought him like a Jeffrey Robertson like History of the World book, and he was like, "Oh, that was quite good." He's like, "But I think it might all be fake."
Here's the problem I have with it is that a lot of groups took really good records, and you have to go look at it. But you have to go look at stuff that's. But I'm going, where else are you going to start for number one? But a lot of stuff that gets me about it is that modern historians ignore the fact of what the contemporary people said at the time. A perfect example.
Modern historians are obsessed with like the sexual habits of scullery maids. Like, they're always trying to tell the most insignificant, personally relatable, publishable narrative they can, and it sucks. I'm like, I want blood, damn it. I want hoplites stabbing each other in the face.
No, hold it. What I'm talking about is this one is supposed to be the account from the native perspective of the Spaniards coming in. And what gets me about this thing is a perfect example, just a little bit where they tried sanitizing it is if anyone ever looked at the history of Jamestown, contemporaries said that they resorted to cannibalism to survive. And
that's the popular narrative, right?
No. Scholars said, no, they aren't really doing that.
The popular version of it is they all just magically disappeared.
No. Jamestown is the first settlement. They didn't just disappear. It's where they were starving to death for years. You're thinking, well, no.
Sorry.
But Jamestown, they literally put out, and the contemporary people, the people who lived at the time, were writing articles that they had to resort to cannibalism. Now, they weren't killing the people. What they were doing is when the person died, they would butcher, whatever was left, usually. And so that's what they were, it's what they call survival cannibalism. When someone dies, they would eat the dead person.
There was a soccer team from Brazil in recent history.
Survive was the book or movie from it.
Alive or something where their plane went down.
Yeah, that was, and I heard about that for years. But what was interesting was whether it's the Donner Party or something like that. It's not that they killed the people. It's they died of disease or something, or freezing, something like that. They would eat them, and they didn't. The contemporary historians, until like the last 10 or 15 years, refused to believe what was written in by the contemporary people. The people who were that were part of that time. They refused. They said, "Oh no, that was just like bad publicity or whatever." Anyway, they found a lady, they dug her up, and they found the cut marks showing that she had been butchered. And they said, "Oh my God, they really did resort to cannibalism." And I said, "Why wouldn't you believe your contemporaries when they're not saying something?" They're talking about how hard life is, and that's the problem that I have with a lot of them. Is the same thing whenever you're looking at Egyptians or Greeks. They talk about there being older civilizations than they are, or they're inheritors, and they go, "Oh, they didn't know what they were talking about. They just, and it's like, these are not stupid people. That's the thing I hate is when you start looking at how they did stuff. Is technically they're just as smart as we are today. They just didn't have the same.
Our brain hasn't changed. The brain we have now is the same brain that they had back then. I want to wrap this up.
Sure.
A couple things before I want to wrap. James, don't disappear on me. I want to wrap this up with us. Hey, I want to thank the chat for being here with us. James, I want to thank you for joining us from all the way in Australia. I'm still waiting for you to hook me with the Australian woman. I'm looking forward to that. No? Is it me? Am I the problem here? Anyways.
It's just like when a woman ever tells you it's not you, it's me. It's always you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Am I the problem here? Okay. But no, I want to thank James. I want to thank Ominow. I want to thank young Jack for joining us for as long as it. And for those who out there who believe in the power of prayer, which I think we all should in one sense or the other, please spend 5 minutes of your time and say a prayer for Hungar the Sarvarian. He needs this. He needs your prayers. I normally don't say stuff like this because I don't want to be pushy, but he is a good man and he needs whatever help he can get. Even the thought of positivity goes a long way. With that being said, thank you for sharing the last 2 hours, almost 3 hours with me. I will look forward to doing this again sometime with the next couple days, maybe a week. You'll be the second to know because I really don't even know. With that being said, have a good night. Don't do anything I want to do, which doesn't really leave much these days. And go have a fine cigar if you smoke and enjoy your family and the life that you have as much as you can.
Well,